This guy named Ujiha runs a small shop for hunters, selling all kinds of supplies. But there's one big problem. He's always short on crafting materials. And whatever scraps he does get after hunters clear dungeons? Yeah, it's usually low-quality trash. But what if things were different? What if he had his own dungeon, where he could gather high-quality materials whenever he wanted? Even better, imagine having an entire army of trained creatures bringing him anything he needs, ready to fight to the death for their master, and evolving into a fully geared force capable of crushing anyone who dares to threaten him. And on top of that, an overpowered cat and an equally strong dog by his side. Of course, all of that sounded completely impossible, until one day, when he starts reading one strange ancient book. It turns out to be boring as hell, and he ends up dozing off right on top of it. And the moment he does, he gets pulled inside. He blinks open his eyes and he finds himself in a dense, foggy forest. A quick pinch confirms it's real, not a dream, maybe an illusion. He checks his status window, but everything's normal. The silence is unsettling. No animals, just a thick fog hiding everything around him. He pauses at a strange plant, its fruit dangling off storm-beaten branches. They don't look familiar. As he crouches down for a closer look, a description pops up, identifying it as a level 1 ether herb. Hunters burn ether to use skills, and stronger skills burn more. But with this herb, hunters can cast skills without spending any ether for 10 seconds, which amazes him. He regrets not bringing bottles to store the herb's liquid. Just then, he notices bright, lively leaves on a ruined tree and decides to help it, thinking it might die if he leaves it like that. He siphons water from nearby and lets it rain down on the tree, hoping his efforts will be enough to keep the plant alive. A flurry of notifications hits him. Plant amiability level 1 and blessing of XXX level. He stares at the screen, wondering if watering a twig could really trigger this. Out of nowhere, the old tree behind the herb lights up, and then vanishes into thin air right before his eyes, like it was never there. That's when he jolts awake, snapping back to reality. At first he brushes it off as a dream, but it felt far too real. Then he notices the dirt clinging to his hands. His eyes widen as the realization sinks in. Everything he saw actually happened. Still not sure what to believe, he wonders if he had sleepwalked somehow. But there's no dirt anywhere near his place, so that doesn't make sense. Maybe he really went somewhere else. Just to test it, he grabs the same book and starts reading it, hoping sleep might take him back to that strange forest. Turns out he was right. After falling asleep, he wakes up in the same forest. But he notices subtle changes. The mist is thinner, and the place looks more open. That's when he realizes this is a dungeon that appears only when he sleeps, a concept completely new to him. Inside the dungeon, he spots a solar apple level 1 hanging from a tree, an item that's rare even in top-tier dungeons. Health potions on their own only restore 10% of max health. But when combined with this apple, they heal an extra 20% and the recovery time drops by nearly 80%. The most shocking part is the abundance of these rare solar apples. He thinks that if he can gather these along with the ether herbs, he could craft a potion that's incredibly powerful. He thinks grabbing a few apples shouldn't be a big deal. But while he's still wondering how to take everything with him, something falls out of the sky and hits him right in the face. He catches it just in time and stares in disbelief. It's a dimensional pouch. The discovery is both exciting and a little scary. With it, he can carry things out of the dungeon and maybe even sell them at his general store. To his surprise, it even has a few bottles tucked inside. The scene shifts to the next day at Hunting Ground, a well-known hunter specialty chain store in Seoul's District 7. Supplies are running dangerously low. Hunters rush around, desperate to prepare, since they have just 30 minutes before heading into the dungeons. Paralysis resistance potions are especially scarce, with other stores like Witch's Cauldron and Pyramid already sold out. The 12th ranked hunter, Seo Hyejin, the Sword Witch, arrives at the store, turning heads with her rare Tier 4 dungeon gear. It's the first time a hunter gets a close look at her. She goes straight to the manager, who's surprised by her unexpected visit. She explains her calls weren't answered and wants to know if the potion she ordered yesterday is ready. The manager apologizes, saying the potion is still in the works due to the heavy workload and asks her to wait. However, Hyejin insists she cannot wait. Her dungeon run starts in 30 minutes. Pulling out her phone, she starts searching for other shops. Meanwhile, our guy is deep into experimenting with the items he brought from the forest. Checking off purified water, Undine's tears, and ether herb liquid from his mental list, he confirms nothing's left out. Then he adds the solar apple concentrate and mixes it all thoroughly. Suddenly, a bunch of notifications appear, showing that XXX's blessing level 1 triggered a great success on his potion. He earns alchemy level 1 and successfully creates a special potion level 1. The potion grants 14 seconds of zero ether consumption for skills and heals 14% of max health over 15 seconds. He holds the flask, amazed at the alchemy skill he gained, something self-proclaimed alchemists do not get. He wonders what this XXX's blessing is that made his potion so potent. Selling it crosses his mind, but he is not even sure how to price something like that. The potion is way too good. Just when he decides to keep the potion and test it himself first, Hyejin, the huntress from earlier, steps into his store and heads straight to him, urgently asking if he has any potions, making it clear she's in a hurry. Her eyes catch the potion on the counter. She asks if it's a health potion. Jiha says it is, but it's not for sale yet. She shrugs off the warning, apologizes, and says she has no choice. She drops some cash, tells him to contact her guild if it's not enough, and walks out fast. He stands there, calling after her, worried the potion might backfire. The narrative shifts to the sword witch deep inside the dungeon, locked in a rough fight with mole-like creatures. She uses her skill to fire glowing swords that tear through the monsters as she pushes ahead, clearing everything in her path. Two male collectors follow behind, impressed by the way the 12th ranked hunter handles the fight. The taller one says there's nothing left for them to do, a clear sign of her dominance. The shorter one agrees but feels uneasy and believes they need to raise their skills. The taller guy tells his partner to drop the idea of bothering the sword witch and just focus on quietly gathering resources instead. He mentions that if Hyejin were still the person she used to be, she'd have called them for backup. But after a certain incident, she's gone fully solo. The other guy tries to ask about that incident, but before he gets a word out, she rushes toward them, yelling for everyone to run. They're caught off guard, stunned by the sudden alarm. The reason for the alarm comes into focus: a giant creature with purple glow and razor-sharp claws. This Manstalker, an aversion-level monster from Grade 4 dungeons, is notorious for its deadly poison and massive size. Panic sets in as they realize how bad their situation is. The men remain frozen despite her warning, so she steps back to face the Manstalker alone. She swings her heavy sword at the towering horned beast, fighting fiercely. Still, the demon's strength overwhelms her, and her ether is nearly gone. All she can do now is hold it off long enough for the others to get away. In the heat of danger, her thoughts flicker to her partner Sung-yuk, someone she wishes were here right now. But she knows he's gone, no longer around to help. Facing the reality that she's on her own, she recalls the potion she bought earlier from our guy's store. With nothing to lose, she drinks the potion, finding it surprisingly tasty. A sudden surge of ether washes over her, filling her with power. Feeling renewed, she steps back into the fight, ready to take control against the demon. With her skill, Powerful Sword Rampage, she slices the creature in two, surprised that the potion's health recovery and zero ether consumption let her hold the skill for 10 seconds, far beyond her usual 3 seconds. Staring at the empty bottle makes her curious about the shop she bought it from. The next day, Hyejin bursts into Jiha's shop, demanding answers about the potion she bought and intimidating him. Onlookers murmur, recognizing her as the famed hunter who single-handedly wiped out a swarm of manstalkers. Realizing her tone is too harsh, she apologizes and inquires about the potion that healed 14% of her health at zero ether cost. He reveals it came from a solar apple in a zero-tier dungeon, confusing her even more considering how rare the apples are. Jiha, feeling nervous about revealing too much, tries to stay vague. When Hyejin notices a glowing blue vial, he explains it's an ice resistance potion, 32% for 40 minutes. She's stunned, knowing most barely give 10% for 15 minutes. Curious, she asks its origin, and he recalls finding rare winter strawberries in a magical forest, though at the time they were only level 1 and gave 20% ice resistance for 30 minutes. Our guy had gathered the berries which he refined with his alchemy skill to make the potion, leveling up in the process. He claims the ingredients came from a tier 0 dungeon. Though skeptical of his explanation, Hyejin buys every potion he has, paying far above market value. She compliments his name before leaving, hinting at their paths crossing again. Later, he returns to the forest, finding glowstone, kindle gem, and plans to restock winterberries. The sheer amount of rare resources here, and the fact that no monsters are around, makes him question what kind of place this is. A rustle in the bushes reveals tiny beetle-like mythic monsters, the pterodrones. Jiha's surprised by their size, but a barrier stops him from following. Beyond the barrier, devil ants, massive hazard-class threats, battle the pterodrones. Kill one and more appear, each carrying poison deadlier than aversion monsters. But their size compared to the beetles doesn't add up since they both are supposed to be the same size. The fight turns brutal as the devil ants overwhelm the pterodrones. He's unsure what they're fighting, but sees the tiny creatures faltering. Just as he thinks of helping, a prompt pops up, declaring war between him and his pterodrones against the ants, asking him if he will join. Seeing the pterodrones listed as his, he agrees to join, and a warning prompt appears. His side is losing. He can pick one of 3 minor buffs for 1 essence or spend 2 essence on Laborer's Blessing. Choosing the latter, Jiha restores the pterodrone's strength, and they quickly sweep the devil ants aside. After the battle, Jiha thanks the tiny creatures for protecting the forest. They gather and offer him a pile of essence stones. The barrier falls and the mist surrounding the area lifts. Although Jiha planned a brief visit, he now chooses to explore the forest further. The story shifts to Hunter's Net, the hub for dungeon hunters buzzing about Seo Hyejin, the Sword Witch. She's ranked 12th, but chat rooms are questioning her latest victory. In a private chat, a red-haired woman discusses the Sword Witch with a user online. In the conversation, it's revealed Hyejin has been hunting solo ever since her partner, Sung-yuk, vanished 3 years ago. Yet the user dismisses it, saying she should move on. The redhead bristles at the cold, ignorant tone. Knowing how Hyejin has searched dungeons for years, she can't stomach such careless words. Then suddenly Chulhyun, her guildmate, a leading alchemist from the Eternal Flame Guild, interrupts her fuming and reminds her to take care of herself. She asks him to update on the information she asked him to gather on Jiha. He reports that the store owner is just a low-ranked hunter, notable only for selling the rare solar apple. She presses for details and learns that the solar apple significantly cuts usage of ether, yet Jiha sells its potions for far less than their worth. The investigator suspects that the man is either unaware of its value or too humble. She decides to step out for fresh air and visit Jiha herself. He offers her a car, but she refuses, until he reminds her she's Cha Huayan, Guildmaster of Eternal Flame. The story shifts to Jiha, who ventures deeper into the forest after seeing the fog and barrier lift, only to find the air growing colder. Though the surroundings look much the same, the area ahead is cloaked in a dangerous-looking purple energy. Trusting his instincts, Jiha decides not to press on further. Getting up, he finds the Terradrones waiting, offering blue mist-chasing flower seeds that clear fog. Spotting a new face among them, he suspects it's their leader, and realizes they came from the misty zone he dared not to enter. A prompt asks Jiha to rescue the Terradrone's queen, so he agrees, knowing they protect the forest. He crafts potions and rations to ensure his little allies are ready for battle. Then he considers an area buff to give them an edge against the devil ants, just as before. He rallies the Terradrones towards the devil ant hive, where a huge horde of ants emerges. As the insect armies clash, the Terradrones fight better than before, until Jiha notices one beetle being overpowered. He contemplates using a special slap that knocks flying devil ants out of the air. Our guy targets a winged messenger trying to call the main army and stops it with a timely strike. Meanwhile, Huayan visits Jiha's general store, curious about the rumored solar apple, and intrigued by talk that Seo Hyejin beat the manstalker after coming here. The shop looks plain from the outside, but she's determined to uncover its secrets. Finding the door locked despite the open sign, she asks a cleaner about the schedule. He says it hasn't opened since yesterday and that the owner is rarely around, hardly professional. Remembering it's closed on weekends, she suspects the store owner makes himself hard to find, and senses there's more to him than he shows. While she searches, Jiha has taken down the winged devil ant to aid his legion. The Terradrones return victorious, carrying their rescued queen. When the queen tries to move, he warns her not to overexert. She then offers a contract, making him their sponsor in exchange for valuable rewards and support. Jiha accepts immediately due to the mutual benefits, sealing their partnership. Then suddenly, right before his eyes, the Terradrone general evolves into a powerful warrior, now fitting his title perfectly. Soon, a line of beetles arrives with another huge haul of essence and ether stones, far more than he'll ever need. 10 essence and a sprinkle of ether stones would have been enough, but the group clearly thinks otherwise. Jiha examines the seeds from the Terradrone general. The wild grape seed seems ordinary, but the world tree fruit seed feels mysterious. He decides its secret will reveal itself once planted, and trusts the forest to handle the rest. He then considers building a cabin nearby. The next day, hunters led by Hyung Nim enter a dungeon, certain the devil ant queen is inside. Instead, they find it already cleared, the nest completely empty with no ants and no trace of the queen. Hyung Nim can't comprehend how it could be done so fast since the dungeon just opened, which leads them to suspect someone else cleared the dungeon, but the leader rejects the idea, reminding them that cleared dungeons don't reopen. They push deeper and find clear signs of an attack. Refusing to believe all the ants vanished, he orders a thorough search. Then a massive palm print is spotted, hinting at a destruction-level monster. Hyung Nim bolts, ordering a retreat and warning that any monster capable of wiping out devil ants is far beyond their abilities. One wrong move could mean instant death, so they must leave it to the Hunter Association. The scene changes to an office where Kim Hyung-suk, the successor of the powerful Goryeo group, is briefed that the devil ant nest was cleared before the hunters arrived. The size of the handprint is unlike anything known, making him suspect a mythic-grade creature, or something even worse. The thought leaves him uneasy, haunted by memories of a past catastrophe. The next day, Jiha waits outside a building in Seoul's Area 5, where his clumsy sister, Hwang Sun-young, rushes out to meet him. He warns her not to run, but she trips anyway. Helping her up, he checks if she's okay, only for her to reassure him, not about herself, but about the book she's carrying. Sun-young, South Korea's only origami hunter and a bookworm, receives breakfast from Jiha, courtesy of their other sister Jumi, while handing him a book she recently bought. She mentions the store manager seemed upset because customers kept returning it. As he flips through it, the book begins to glow, and a prompt appears. He acquires the Infinite Spellbook, an item that lets him write spells using a thunderbird's feather and a special ink called Various. Jiha asks his sister if the book is just decor. She says the book is empty and couldn't be written in, so the store sold it as decor. Jiha tries writing in it himself and realizes he can't either, explaining the message he received. He realizes his sister didn't get the message if she still considers it a decor. Sun-young worries he might not like the book, but her brother assures her he does, and promises to use it wisely, which brightens her mood. Later, alone, Jiha keeps testing the spellbook but still can't write in it, recalling the message about needing a thunderbird's feather and special ink. He learns that the birds are massive, rare avian creatures having a 25-meter wingspan and are from remote, harsh lands. The idea to hunt them seems daunting, so he decides it'll just be decoration for now. Just when he's not expecting anything, a sudden glow wraps around his hand that was resting on the book, granting him 2 abilities, Nice Handwriting Level 1 and Ancient Magic Level 1. He's briefly stunned, noticing no immediate change, but suspects they might carry some significance. He tries out his new trait, amused that his once messy handwriting now looks flawless. though it still won't let him write on the infinite spellbook. A sudden disturbance outside catches his attention. A gate has appeared, revealing a rank 0 dungeon in a grassland valley with one goal: retrieve a thunderbird's feather within an hour where only laborers can enter. Jiha suspects his handwriting trait triggered the gate, but, despite its ominous aura, trusts a rank 0 dungeon will be manageable. Stepping through, he's greeted by lush waterfalls and serene beauty, until a vast shadow passes overhead. Looking up, he sees the thunderbird, gigantic and radiant, its wings stretching across the sky. Startled by the bird's building-sized scale, Jiha wonders how he could ever hunt it, until soft feathers drift down from above. Realizing he only needs to collect them, he marvels at the task's unexpected ease. Next comes finding ink, and right on cue, the pterodrone he'd sent ahead returns with a bottle of green herb extract. With everything ready, he turns to his next goal, unlocking the infinite spellbook. Using the thunderbird feather and special ink, he writes for the first time. Golden runes erupt, swirling through the air before engraving themselves into a nearby tree. He realizes he's just witnessed the creation of a rune word. The scene shifts to Jiha recalling an old legend. A great tree taught an ancient tribe 4 powerful spells: creation, harmony, change, and destruction. To control them, the ancients devised rune words, magical inscriptions that made the spells stable. In his shop, he finds a book explaining that the world tree granted humans magic, which could only be harnessed safely using rune words. He's never encountered them, and wonders if someone uses them today. The rune words emerge on the tree after the spellbook's conditions are satisfied, yet he remains puzzled as to why they didn't appear in the book itself. He recognizes the engraved tree as the one he planted when he first entered the Dream Forest, suspecting it could be a sapling of the legendary world tree. Fearing the markings might vanish, he copies the rune words in his book. As he studies the carving, he's startled to comprehend them, despite seeing them for the first time. It reads, "Destruction, thy flame will set everything on fire." Once he is done copying the markings on the tree into his book, the writing transforms into a tangible scroll of change destruction, which enhances the power of rune magic. He tears out the page, planning to make 99 more. When he looks back, the torn page has already restored itself, which means it's an infinite spellbook. With enough ink, he can create endless scrolls, though their exact effects remain unknown. As he's not a magician, he can't test them himself, but he could learn more by giving it to a mage. A while later, Jiha returns to his store and is met by a new visitor, a red-haired woman, clearly furious after several failed attempts to track him down. She vents her frustration, and he apologizes. After a quick look, she deems him ordinary, just as her guild member, Cholhyun, had said. Her intense gaze makes him uneasy, thinking she might be angry, but she's actually deciding that her real interest lies not in Jiha himself, but in the extraordinary items he sells. After a brief pause, she hands him her card, introducing herself as Cha Huayan, leader of the Eternal Flame Guild. She inquires about the rumored special items in his store, and Jiha immediately guesses she means the solar apple or winter strawberry potions, which have been popular lately. To make up for her trouble, Jiha offers some items for free. She's surprised, since rare potions aren't this easy to get while he is giving her for free, though when he checks his inventory, he realizes he's out of stock, a first for him, caused by recent distractions with the pterodrones and the infinite spellbook. Jiha, embarrassed, apologizes and promises to have the items ready by the next day. Huayan, though disappointed and unsure whether he's kind or simply naive, accepts his apology and agrees to wait. The redhead turns to leave, disappointed since she hoped to try his potions that very day. Then it hits him that she's a flame magician, so he quickly offers a flame scroll he made as a sample, not wanting her to go empty-handed. She takes the scroll politely, opens it and finds a fire spell. After testing it, she praises the incantation as she turns to leave. He notices her glowing staff, curious if the magic caused it. Afterwards, Huayan leads her guild in the spider dungeon, swiftly defeating a sentinel spider. She orders them to advance while staying alert. As she wields her staff, she feels her power surge, the embedded runestone glowing fiercely. A sudden warning from her team alerts her to a toxin splash aimed at her. She evades it without harm, and spots numerous glowing eyes lurking in the shadows, far more foes than their report had suggested. Recognizing the danger, her teammate apologizes for the oversight, and suggests retreating to regroup. Yet the guild leader remains steadfast, confident in her strength and determined to push forward despite the risks. She ignites her staff and unleashes a fierce fire attack, scorching everything in her path. Her guild members are amazed by the sheer power of her magic, wondering how much she's improved and joking that she could clear the entire dungeon solo at this rate. The flames subside, leaving Huayan shocked by the power she wielded, wondering if it came from Jiha's scroll. The next day, Jiha prepares solar apple and winter strawberry potions at his store, packing them in a rush for Huayan's early visit. She arrives just as he finishes, this time accompanied by another person. The woman presents him a briefcase of cash, feeling guilty about accepting the scroll for free, especially since its power surpasses even grade S items. Noticing his modest prices, she assumes he isn't driven by money. Jiha, momentarily flustered by the sum, clarifies that he does value money, but didn't expect such generosity. Hwayeon insists on paying for the powerful scroll, calling it cheat grade, which confirms Jiha's belief in the spellbook's worth. She offers to wire the money if needed, but he politely refuses, framing it as an apology for delay. Deep down, he knows he's not worthy of the payment, since his real aim was to have her test the unproven scroll. She cautions him that kindness can turn to foolishness in an instant, unsettling her companion. She compares him to a goose laying golden eggs. Giving them away freely would only invite predators. She relates Jiha's abilities to the goose's golden eggs, that they are amazing yet dangerous in the world of hunters. Hwayeon returns to her main point, inviting him to join the Eternal Flame Guild. The sudden offer surprises him, and she quickly apologizes for her earlier bluntness, assuring him her guild is trustworthy. The guild leader admits to bringing the cash herself to show her guild's commitment to rewarding him. Though Jiha knows their reputation, he still appreciates their efforts. Emphasizing the guild's support, she introduces Chul-hyun, their chief alchemist, and promises Jiha plenty of research collaborations. They assure him a tailored salary and benefits, with a high-ranking role from the start. Though grateful, he declines the offer, which she misinterprets and tells her companion to draft a contract. She's taken aback as his refusal sinks in, questioning why he'd turned down such favorable terms. He explains the offer feels overwhelming and believes others are better suited, but his modesty frustrates her even more. He admits he started as a low-ranked hunter with no special powers. His ability to craft rare items comes from luck, circumstance, and a great friend. He doubts his skills will last and prefers to stay tied to his store. Her guild member urges respect for his decision. Her guild member senses Jiha won't be easily swayed and urges her to respect his decision. Our guy reassures them he'll be careful and follow their guidance and charge her more for the potion she reserved. Though uncomfortable with the rejection, she cautions him not to regret it in a crisis. He assures the guild he's safe, thanks to his magical humming bell, a flower that alerts him to danger. The story then shifts, reflecting on how gates have changed the world. Nature is fading, monsters overrun beaches and seas, and even mountains and valleys offer little refuge. Yet in the dream forest, Jiha finds a rare sanctuary, enjoying a peaceful beach, surprising him since he expected only forest here. As he unwinds, he wonders if he's fit to be a shop owner. He had expected to focus more on his store, but the encounter with Hwayeon left him exhausted. Seeking rest, he settles by a campfire with his books. That's when he realizes he'd forgotten one thing. Unexpected guests can arrive any time, like the mysterious white cat he soon discovers. 2 hours earlier, Jiha relaxed by a campfire, listening to waves, an uncommon peace since the seas turned dangerous. Just as he thought about bringing others here, he heard a faint cat-like sound, wild, yet soft. Noticing his humming bell plant stayed silent, he knew it wasn't a threat. Just then, a pterodrone appeared, leading him to the source, a large white feline, named Actus, looking weak and injured. Gently picking it up, he wondered if a potion could help. As he cradled the creature, a soft whisper from the pterodrone directed his gaze to several more carrying fish. When he asked if they'd been caring for Actus, their thoughtfulness moved him, and he promised to bring more food next time. The scene then shifts back to the present. Jiha feels relieved seeing Actus respond well to the potion. The cat, once shivering, now sleeps peacefully. This sparks Jiha's curiosity about the dream forest. He realizes he's never seen animals here before. When Actus opens its eyes as Jiha gently pats its head, he apologizes, but the cat purrs softly. Overwhelmed by its cuteness, he cuddles it and decides to rename it Bayom, inspired by its tiger-like look. Jiha brings Bayom to his store, where customers instantly fall for the magical creature and begin inquiring about its origin. He explains he found it in a dungeon and brought it along since it had nowhere else to go. When a customer tries to pet Bayom, the cat scratches her. Jiha quickly apologizes and explains the cat is shy. He notices it only shows affection to him, making it wary of others. He begins to question if keeping it in the store is a good idea, but leaving it alone at home isn't better. At that moment, Hijin stops by with coffee, mentioning she has business nearby. She's startled by Bayom, and even more when Jiha calls the cat a tiger. He thinks maybe the sword witch has fears too. She offers him coffee, but the cat approaches her, making her nervous. Apologizing, he tells the cat to get down. The cat seems to seek Hyejin's touch, so she cautiously pets it. The softness and gentle nature ease her nerves. She comments on how Jiha's free distribution of powerful buff scrolls has sparked attention on HunterNet. Even the leader of the Eternal Flame Guild recently came for a scroll valued at hundreds of millions. She wonders whether he is unambitious or simply naive, but suspects his generosity reflects a life led without greed. Perhaps the very reason she keeps returning to his shop. Suddenly, the magical humming bell in the shop rings loudly, signaling danger. A Type 4 catastrophe warning blares, ordering nearby residents to evacuate immediately. Hijin shouts at him to flee at once, urging haste, but he remains frozen, clutching Bayom tightly. Hunters arrive, guiding civilians to safety as the street descends into chaos. Jiha hears murmurs that a Type 4 warning signals a Level 4 dungeon which only top hunters can handle. He tries to soothe the cat, yet the shaking ground reminds him danger is imminent. Dungeon catastrophes occur when hunters fail to clear a dungeon. Low-level dungeon breaks are manageable, but a rank 4 or higher dungeon catastrophe poses serious danger. Authorities evacuate civilians within 20 kilometers, launch military and armored operations, and assemble high-ranking hunters at the front, which is why the Eternal Flame Guild is here to control the threat. Things begin to escalate and skeletal monsters pour out from the catastrophe gate. The military responds immediately, launching fighter jets and missiles to stop the monsters. But the city plunges into chaos as the horde advances. The manager Hyun-suk, leading the military, identifies the emerging monsters as leeches, realizing this outbreak must have been caused by the failed undead dungeon attack. He orders all attacks focused on the gate to stop the monsters and curse-casting leeches, confident that the threat can be contained easily, and then they can move to battle the remnants. Then, a far deadlier creature crawls out, forcing him to rethink his plan. The commander issues an emergency order for all units to concentrate their firepower on this new threat. Soldiers unleash everything at their disposal in a desperate attempt to stop the monster. Explosions erupt across the battlefield as the creature is bombarded with heavy weaponry. Though the soldiers think their firepower is effective, Hyun-suk doubts it will leave a mark on the disaster rank monster. It spots nearby civilians, its sole intent to destroy every threat in sight. The creature charges with terrifying speed, bypassing the defenders entirely, leaving them stunned. Then its true target becomes clear, the city's main shelter where civilians are hiding. The Sword Witch leaps into action, unleashing her powerful sword rampage to intercept it, while the guild leader blasts it with fire magic. Yet the monster keeps advancing towards the shelter without paying them any heed. Despite Hwayeon's warnings, Hyejin rushes forward, intent on saving Jiha and everyone in the shelter. The monster breaches the civilian sanctuary and locks onto its target, Jiha, who stands frozen in terror. Just as the monster is about to strike, Baeom leaps forward, unleashing a magical attack. To Baeom, the creature is merely a lowly demon and unleashes a magical roar, its power echoing like a tiger's fury. Suddenly, Hyejin senses a surge of ether radiating from the shelter that freezes the monster in place. She takes the chance and rushes forward, signaling Cha Hwayeon, who is already casting a powerful flame spell. Her sword rampage synchronizes with the fire magic in perfect unison, engulfing the beast in a storm of blazing sword strikes. With the monster finally defeated, silence descends on the battlefield, prompting them to believe the fight is over, but the Sword Witch alerts the leader about the ether she felt earlier. As the dust settles, Hyejin is surprised to see Jiha still kneeling in the shelter, holding Baeom, while everyone else has fled. With the authorities concluding the situation is resolved, they begin tending to the wounded. Hyejin, however, can't shake the memory of the ether she sensed. It has disappeared. Meanwhile, Jiha returns home, exhausted from the day's chaos. Post-shower, he sits at his desk with Baeom, noticing the cat's calm expression and recalling the anger it displayed earlier when confronted with the monsters. Still intrigued by what happened, Jiha begins recording it in his legendary spellbook. As he writes, the information appears directly on the Mir Wiki, a world database that was previously thought to be uneditable by anyone. The first person to notice this change is Hyun-suk, who is immediately shocked. A high-level debriefing follows, with officials and hunters reviewing the disaster. They confirm that the ether wave triggered massive energy fluctuations, yet their hunters weren't responsible for the final strike. Luckily, the unforeseen ether explosion neutralized the threat before it could cause more destruction. One of them suggests that it might have been a phenomenon rather than a human that caused it. Their attention then shifts to the Mir Wiki, which updated for the first time ever during the incident. The group realizes someone extraordinarily strong scared the monster, and the information appeared instantly on the forum. Hyejin emphasizes that the person responsible for forcing the monster away was present in the shelter and may possess extraordinary abilities. Hwayeon adds that multiple witnesses heard a cat's cry during the ether explosion, and that Jiha, accompanied by a snow leopard-like cat, was inside the shelter. As a result, Hwayeon leads the group to Jiha's store, insisting on seeing the cat. Jiha, uneasy about their enthusiasm, cautions them that Baeom might get scared and run away if they're too aggressive. Just then, Baeom leaps onto the counter and stretches, instantly capturing everyone's attention. The guild leader scoops up Baeom, surprised at how ordinary the cat looks for a creature that caused such a massive ether wave. Jiha tries to warn her about Baeom's temper, but she ignores him, rubbing the cat roughly, hoping to sense something from its earlier power. The cat snaps, biting her and leaping away as Jiha frantically tries to alert her. The conversation shifts as Hyejin mentions the shelter incident, noting a cat's cry was heard just before the monstrous being retreated, and that Jiha had been there with his own cat. Baeom lashes out at Jiha, clawing at his hair, which makes Hyun-suk doubt the report's validity. Although he still wants to recruit Jiha, he decides the timing isn't right. Hwayeon has already been rejected, and he has no intention of competing with the Eternal Flame Guild. He turns to leave without giving him an offer, and Hwayeon chases him, muttering that she wanted to see him get rejected too. Hyejin bids farewell to Jiha politely and follows after them. By nightfall, Jiha returns to the forest and begins reading a book. He comes across the Gehenna continent, a name that rings a faint bell from something he heard before. The book displays a detailed map of the continent, describing how many races once coexisted under a great tree. It explains that the tree created the nature gods to protect Gehenna. Jiha freezes at an illustration of a nature god, a white feline with black spots, labeled Nature's Raging Fang. Though Baeom seems ordinary, the memory of the ether explosion convinces him his cat might be far more than it appears, possibly a nature god. The realization hits him. The tree from his dreams might be the legendary world tree. Everything clicks. the feeling that the tree was giving him a purpose, the laborer class he acquired, helping the Pterodrones, and saving Biom, all are tied to the World Tree's blessing. At that moment, his spellbook glows and flips open. A new status window appears, revealing his class as XXX's worker, with the trait XXX's blessing, listing skills in plant and animal taming as well as alchemy. The book flares brighter, forcing him to shield his eyes. Jiha flips through channels and stops at a news conference discussing the constant threat of undead creatures led by an ancient lich. 10 years after the government abandoned their hunt, corruption runs rampant, food is scarce, and people are starving. Officials debate bombing the area, knowing they must use every resource to succeed. Jiha doubts hunting liches is that simple, so he turns off the TV and sleeps. Jiha drifts back into his dream forest and finds himself standing before the World Tree. He realizes it was this tree that brought him here. Though he questions why he was chosen for such a responsibility, he resolves to help the tree in any way possible. Suddenly, a swirling purple vortex erupts behind him. From it, an elder lich emerges, chanting curses and demanding submission. The elder lich raises its staff, summoning an army of skeletal minions. Jiha registers it as dreadgrade but thinks they are adorable due to their miniature size. Though he is quickly reminded of the danger as a prompt warns that they are advancing and corrupting nearby land. Jiha braces to protect his lands without a second thought. When prompted to suggest ways to curb the lich's power, he accepts the task outright. Jiha considers striking the army with a slap, but realizes a lich cannot be defeated that way. Knowing only the destruction of the lich's life source and purifying the corrupted land can stop it, he shifts focus. A distant castle catches his attention, triggering a sense of familiarity. Examining it closer, he recognizes the flag of the Estrom Kingdom. It sparks a grim realization that the undead could be the former citizens of the kingdom. Setting aside the unsettling thought, he commands his Pterodrones to counter the corruption immediately. The Pterodrones charge but are stopped by a huge rock. Only the Pterodrone warrior can fly, so Jiha knows leaving it would slow them down. Prompted to either move the rock with one essence or let them handle it, he acts immediately, clearing the way. Afterwards, he directs them to find the enemy's source. The Elder Lich responds, ordering undead minions to protect its tribute box and unleashing a spell that devastates the advancing Pterodrones. The tide turns against the Pterodrones, but the warrior charges its leader with a forceful headbutt, while Jiha casts Worker's Blessing, boosting the entire army. Amid the clash of Pterodrones and undead, the Elder Lich is driven to the ground and torn apart limb by limb. Yet he only laughs, declaring that destroying his body is pointless. His true weakness lies elsewhere. Suddenly its eyes flare, it senses the enemies closing in on its life source. However, their strength is not enough, so Jiha is prompted to evolve his Pterodrone warrior for 5 essence. He hesitates due to high cost, but ultimately accepts. The creature evolves into a fearsome knight, and it storms towards the castle's heart, urgently ramming the cursed box with its horns. As the life source shatters, the lich howls in agony before its body and army dissolve into blue mist. Jiha, savoring the victory, is soon greeted by his Pterodrones, who bring spoils from the battlefield and present him with a treasure chest. To his surprise, the chest expands in size, and inside lies the Estrom Kingdom's royal seal, a rare artifact that boosts mentality by 5 and grants the Conqueror's charisma trait. This item confirms this truly was the Estrom Kingdom. Though he'd like to return it, the true owner is long gone, so he chooses to keep it safe. With the lich's source destroyed, he turns to cleansing, purifying the land to erase lingering corruption. Undead remains are hauled to the forest by his tiny helpers and instantly crumble to dust, confirming his suspicion that the forest would decompose it. His Pterodrone knight returns with ink, urging him to write a scroll. Jiha refuses. Without a rune word, it's pointless. But then, as if answering the need, rune words form in midair. He inscribes a spell to restore the land to its original state. While he's puzzling over how to cast it, Bayom leaps onto his back, distracting him. While Jiha plays with his cat, the Pterodrone knight rips out the freshly written page from his spellbook. In its place, a harmony scroll materializes, capable of cleansing and restoring the corrupted land. Pterodrone snatches the scroll and vanishes, leaving Jiha looking around, wondering where it disappeared to. Not long after, the liches rise again in the lands of Jiri-san, hurling curses and claiming the land. Locals dismiss it as nonsense, even though they know these disaster-level monsters are a serious threat. Their conversation dies mid-sentence as they spot a glint in the sky. As their curse swells, the liches claim divine right over the land and send their minions charging. Their army surges, then stops cold when a Pterodrone knight emerges from the gate. The Elder Lich instantly recognizes the creature as the race of the cursed tree, the guardians of the forest, commanding his army to finish it. The Pterodrone knight gores a skeleton, only to be blasted by the Elder Lich's curse, but the Pterodrone knight shrugs it off like a mild itch. The lich freezes in disbelief as the knight calls its army forward to crush the undead. The scene cuts to the shop, where Jiha's sister bursts in, flicking on the TV for the news. Footage shows Jiri-san, where traces of battle remain and the once purple lands are now cleansed. Officials suggest the liches may have been wiped out. Jiha frowns, unsure what to make of it, until the anchor mentions a never-before-seen monster, possibly destruction level, and displays the Pterodrone knight. His confusion deepens, wondering what would a Pterodrone be doing there. The Eternal Flame headquarters buzzes with debate over the news footage. Hyunsok is certain the creature isn't destruction grade, yet Heejin claims they are mythic grade. Hwyun just sits in confusion at the strange events. Meanwhile, Jiha heads back into the forest to confront the Terradrones. He rounds them up and asks if they tore the scroll and then appeared at the battle in Jiri. The knight darts off and returns with a pile of ether stones and essence as if to bribe him. He chuckles, refusing the bribe, and pats their tiny heads in thanks for cleansing Jiri-san. His gaze drifts back to the 10 ether stones and 10 essences, now worrying about how he's going to handle them. Biom reaches for a crystal playfully, yet in an instant, the cat has it in his grasp and swallows the crystals whole. The sight sparks a realization. This is what fuels the cat, and likely the reason the Terradrones had taken it. Then, using his 15 remaining essences, Jiha boosts his stats, strength to 9, endurance to 8, and tests his muscles for signs of growth. While the added power would benefit his work, he decides not to obsess over it. Life already feels complete with Biom at his side. Sometime later, a call from the Hunter Management Center invites Yu Jiha to a dungeon latecomer party, and the novelty of it makes him eager to go. Arriving at the Grand Fountain crowded with recovery specialists, he spots an acquaintance, Mr. Wang Ho, who confirms the rumors of this being the first dungeon of such scale. The mood shifts when Seo Hyejin steps into view, drawing murmurs from the crowd. Even in armor, her beauty stands out, and whispers spread about her latest feat, completing a quest alone while the other high-ranking hunters with her could only watch. Hyejin spots Jiha, makes her way over and asks if he is going to the dungeon as a latecomer. Jiha explains he was called in, likely because the raid still needs more hands. The casual exchange with the sword witch draws stares from the onlookers. Concerned about the risk, she offers to accompany him inside. Hyejin claims he'd move easier with her, but he's reluctant. The organizer offers to transfer the authority to her, but she coldly refuses and takes Jiha with her. They head deeper into the dungeon as she passes a remark about the rare plants found inside which most people don't even care about. When she asks if they should keep going, he pauses and opens his bag, revealing Biom inside, a sight that instantly brings a smile to her face. She reaches for his paw only for Biom to jerk back. Jiha, embarrassed, explains he hates having his paws touched. The cat wriggles out of the bag, noticing his larger size. Hyejin guesses Jiha's been feeding him well. Jiha admits it's expensive to feed him, remembering the 1,000,000,001 ether stone he swallowed. On the way, Hyejin casually asks if Jiha saw the news on Terradrone. Though hesitant to share more, she tells him about giant traces found in the Busan Devil Ant dungeon. He gets nervous hearing her compare their hand size to buildings. It finally registers to him that she might be talking about the same dungeon where he flattened an ant with his palm. When she adds that the raid was cancelled due to that mythical level giant, he smirks inside, knowing that giant was him. At least the miniature forest's connection to the real-world dungeons is confirmed now. Suddenly, Biom starts acting strange hearing the monsters approaching. Hyejin tells him to fall back and draws her sword. Then a deja vu hits her hard as she links this place to where her partner Sung-hyuk vanished. Considering a hunter who was ranked first in Korea disappeared here, Jiha thinks this must be a level 5 zone. Surrounded by Venus human traps, Hyejin downs a potion and readies her stance. She instructs Jiha to run towards the entrance when the monsters attack. However, our hero, being the good guy he is, refuses to leave her to face a swarm of high-class monsters alone. Then Biom suddenly sprints in the direction of the monsters, making Jiha even more stressed. What Jiha witnesses next is jaw-dropping. The monsters in the vicinity begin to flee in terror as Biom advances. Then, with a brutal bite, the cat rips through the wild plant, leaving both hunters rooted in place. Returning with something clamped in his jaws, Biom drops it into Jiha's hands, a seed. He asks the cat where he wants it to be planted while Hyejin remains frozen in disbelief. Noticing the purple mist covering the forest, Jiha warns her. She calmly urges him to leave with the cat, insisting she's found a trace of her old partner and won't leave without investigating. Jiha simply hands her a potion stating they will go together, confident that Biom can protect them. They press deeper into the forest, Biom dozing on Jiha's shoulder, until Hyejin suddenly stops, pointing to a faint light spilling from a cave, certain it might hold the answers they've been seeking. As they near the cave, they notice the erosion hasn't touched its interior and spot traces of blood, pushing them to quicken their pace. Deeper inside, Hyejin's eyes lock onto a broken sword and bloodied armor, which she instantly recognized that they belong to her partner Sung-hyuk. She clings to the armor in tears. Jiha points out that the blood was only at the entrance, which means he could have come here to heal, and then left. A nudge from Biom makes them look down to see a green glowing orb between his teeth. Jiha identifies it as a symbiote egg, planning to research it later, and indulges Biom's demand for a pat. He remarks that the traces they've found mean Han Sung-hyuk could still be alive. Resolute after wiping her tears, Hyejin suggests going back. Outside, she credits Jiha for their lucky break and promises he can call her anytime. She offers to help him anytime he needs it and takes his hands. Biom immediately scratches at their grip out of jealousy until Hyejin soothes him with a gentle stroke. Then they part ways as Jiha has to feed Biom investigate the symbiote egg he brought. Back at his store, he hunts for information on the cave's find. Biom's playful book tipping breaks his focus and momentarily scares him. Then he gives up having found nothing useful. He decides the only way forward is to sleep and return to the dream forest. He wakes in the forest feeling refreshed, only to freeze as he notices the tree he planted has grown into a gigantic one. Its branches are laden with golden fruits labeled Fruit of the World Tree, confirming his suspicions that it is indeed the World Tree. On the ground, the Terradrones chirp for his attention. He shows them the symbiote egg. The Terradrone Knight's reaction is instant. He recognizes it and offers to hatch it, prompting Jiha to choose. Jiha's quick agreement sends the Terradrones moving, their knight guiding them to take the egg into the queen's chamber. The queen accepts it with a gentle hug, then sets it carefully on a bed of essence stones gathered by her subjects. While waiting outside, Jiha idly plays with Bayom until both freeze at the sight of Terradrones forming a chain up the massive trunk towards the glowing canopy. Moments later, a giant butterfly glides out from the glow, and Jiha, stunned by its beauty, wonders if it's the hatched symbiote. Then more butterflies drift into view. A prompt confirms the awakening of symbiotes and the start of the tree's restoration, leaving Jiha and Bayom awestruck. With the World Tree fully restored, Jiha runs his hands down its trunk, feeling relieved. In response, the tree bestows a blessing, awakening his destiny as a World Tree's worker. Jiha gazes in awe as the forest expands and the solar apple fruit levels up to 2, allowing him to craft twice the amount of potions. Though visions of getting rich tempt him, yet he refocuses on his fate, realizing the World Tree may have chosen him to help restore the world. Bayom signals his hunger with a meow and Jiha readies a fishing rod, promising trout. Excited, the cat leaps at the hook. They celebrate as a large fish lands on the line. Suddenly, a prompt appears identifying it as a red trout, granting level 1 extrasensory perception which boosts senses and reflexes by 20% for 30 minutes. The realization that he never got this much description on an item before sparks his curiosity. He digs through his backpack, questioning if other items will reveal new details as well. He pulls out his dimensional pouch, which also has newly added description that it can carry items safely, even while entering other dimensions. He scoops up Bayom and hurries to the store, inspired by a sudden idea. He sets his plan in motion, and sometime later hunters pack the street outside Jiha's store. Bayom threads through the crowd and delivers a token to a woman. They all have gathered here to buy potions from Jiha's store, though each customer can only take 3 bottles and must get a number ticket from the cat. Posters around the store advertise a paralysis potion, boosting resistance by 35% for 30 minutes, and a special health potion, restoring 22% of max health in 13 seconds. Jiha's potions are especially popular in Seoul, which are so effective that they attract hunters from even outside of Seoul. After handing out the last ticket, Bayom jumps onto the counter, earning Jiha's admiration. Customers fill baskets with potions, and Jiha, observing the bustling shop, resolves to use his World Tree-given skill to serve people. He sees one customer off and calls for the next. Just then, his sister Nuna walks in, momentarily taken aback by the crowd. She excitedly shows him that his store is trending on the HunterNet forums right now, and teases about needing a ticket to visit. He reassures her that members of Happy Hunter's clan are always welcome. She examines the paralysis resistance potion, curious if its effects are accurate. Jiha verifies its effectiveness, and she claims that it outperforms other stores' potions. She eagerly asks for a bottle free of cost, but Jiha declines, offering a scroll instead. She marvels at its writing despite its messy look. Jiha explains it's a scroll of creation wish, granting 2 small wishes and also a charm to bring her good luck. Hesitant at first, she uses it to wish for a rare old book. Later, Sunyoung's guild battles small fish-like entities in a dungeon. Their tank, struggling to keep up, is mocked by his sword-wielding comrade. The swordsman hurls the creature with full force, which lands on Sunyoung, leaving her injured on the ground. He apologizes while they all check on her. She gets up, nursing her head. Suddenly, the scroll of creation glows and prompts that her mishap raises the chance of finding special items by 70% for 30 minutes, with only 1 use left. The earth vibrates unexpectedly, splitting underfoot, and the team plunges into the abyss, while the ancient book slips from her grasp. Their fall ends with the ground beneath them, and she questions the repeated misfortune. Realizing the fall isn't from a trap, the mage casts a magical light revealing a hidden chamber brimming with treasures and legendary equipment. As they explore, the white-haired man spots the night troop's longsword, while another deduces the area is a secret hideout. Sunyoung discovers an ancient book of the Black Lion Knight from Gmark Empire, and she jumps in joy, thinking her wish for an ancient book came true. A groupmate warns of the unstable dungeon and urges them to gather what they need and leave. Just as they move, the swordsman falls as the ground beneath him breaks apart, but is saved by the tank. Right then, another earthquake hits them. They attempt to calm each other and head back, but a sudden swarm of monstrous creatures blocks their path. Panic forces them through the corridors, only to be pursued by an even larger, terrifying monster. Sunyoung prays to God Ark, shielding herself with the book, but receives no aid. She opens her eyes to find her team huddled together, surrounded by miles of barren sand with no escape. The scene shifts to Jiha inside the dream forest. He admires the newly fertile soil, thankful for the thriving earthworms. As he ponders what to plant, Bayom presents a seed that sprouts into a monstrous, carnivorous plant. Confused, he watches as the cat enthusiastically shovels dirt, which wins him over, and he decides to lend a hand. Then his humming bell flowers start ringing, alerting him to unexpected visitors. He lifts Bayom, wipes off the dirt, and notices hunters at the window, Sunyoung burning with anger. Stepping outside to greet them, he is met with her furious shouting over the scroll. A prompt on the scroll reveals new information. Misfortune boosts special item drops by 70% for 30 minutes. Recognizing his mistake, he awkwardly invites them inside to freshen up. Everyone collapses inside Jiha's store, prompting him to ask what went wrong. They explain that earthworms suddenly overran the dungeon while they were exploring. He questions himself whether the chaos was caused by the scroll of creation he gave his sister. They explain they've uncovered the Night Troop's secret hideout. Jiha, astonished, asks if it belongs to the Black Lion Night Troop of the Gamark Empire. She confirms and shows him an ancient book, the Night Troop Commander's logbook, but admits most of it is unreadable due to the ancient language. Jiha glances at the logbook and surprises her by reading the ancient language, revealing that monsters have started crossing into the Estrom Kingdom. Impressed, she pulls out an old paper, and his eyes widen in shock as he realizes it's a damaged map of the Gehenna continent. Realizing how useful the map could be in the Dream Forest, he eagerly requests to borrow the logbook and map for a few days in exchange for a huge pile of potions. Seeing their excitement, he adds more for an extra month, charming them all. After sending the customer off, Jiha makes a mental list to improve business for his store and reads the Night Troop Commander's logbook. Seeing Bayam dozing off, he pats its back and settles on the desk and decides to check Nuna's map first, leaving potion making for later. Jiha examines the map and notices its detailed monster listings, identifying the Elder Lich's origin near the southern Estrom Palace and the forest from his run-in with Hyejin near Mount Apeto. Frustrated by the map's incompleteness, he thinks the Terradrones might hold more knowledge, so decides to sleep, and wakes up in the Dream Forest. In the forest, only Biam's movements breaks the silence while the forest feels unnervingly still, making Jiha wonder where the beetles went. In an instant, the humming bells suddenly ring, indicating a powerful monster's presence. Suddenly, a Cyclops with a single red eye emerges, flanked by a Terradrone army. The gardener identifies it as a disaster-grade monster previously seen only in China. He notes its unprecedented size and lethality, remembering that dozens of hunters sent after it in other lands were crushed by its massive club. As the Cyclops strikes at the army, he asks Biam to help them, but the cat refuses. Then he notes the absence of a mission prompt hints the beetles are handling it themselves, so he instead records the monster's details in his infinite spellbook. The Cyclops swings and misses, allowing the knight to charge its crown into the monster's eyes. Jiha shouts a warning just as a red laser erupts from the Cyclops' singular eye. He fears his army cannot match the Cyclops' strength. The army regroups under its leader's guidance, soon hauling a giant ether stone, which the knight shapes into shields. They form a defensive line. The red beam strikes again but reflects from the shields, chopping off the Cyclops' hand holding the weapon. Realizing the beetle's plan works, he excitedly notes their strategy in his legendary book. Knight, noticing the beast is distracted due to pain, uses his ether shard to bring down the Cyclops. They all cheer for the successful defeat of the Cyclops. Jiha rewards them with food and ether stones. Out of nowhere, notifications start flooding, and the essence tallies quickly, reaching 325 stones in his inventory. Turns out whatever he writes in his spellbook updates on the Mir Wiki. Huayun, browsing the website, notices that newly updated information requires 10 essence to view Cyclops' core strategy. She wonders when this kind of system appeared, but uses her essence on it anyways. The post reveals the Cyclops attacks with its club and shoots a deadly beam from its eye. When she tries to view more, a prompt reappears, asking for 10 essence to see the final strategy. Frustrated, she slams her head on the desk, realizing she lacks the required essence. Enraged, she swears vengeance on the person behind the post, while an unsettling sensation disturbs Jiha's calm. Meanwhile, a massive crowd of hunters swarms outside the Hunters Association. The CEO steps out of the car, curious about the commotion, and is presented with the Mir Wiki post about Cyclops. The man explains that it requires 10 essence just to view the info, and another 10 for the final strategy. They note how hunters are willing to pay dearly for the final Cyclops plan, as even 10 essence grants significant stat boosts. Hyunsok realizes barely any hunter would have 20 essence saved up, which must be why everyone is gathered here. He wonders how the author got hold of this information, given that a level 6 Cyclops dungeon has never appeared in the country and is tough to clear unofficially. Then out of the blue, news of the Cyclops dungeon opening breaks out. Hyunsok instructs his subordinate to notify the intelligence team and emergency operations center and to convene a meeting immediately. In the conference room, the team notes the Mir Wiki server is off limits, hence they eliminate the possibility of foreign interference. Even all essence payments to this website are untraceable since they are automatically absorbed by the system that controls the hunter. Hyunsok's assistant confirms that hunters who read the final strategy gain a real buff, proving the rumors true. He orders the emergency operations center to list all participants and monitor them live, prioritizing their safety. The hunters assemble outside the dungeon, unease spreading among some, though the guild leader is eager to begin. Hyejin outlines the strategy, instructing tanks to wait until the reflective shield is ready, planning for herself and Yungbek to enter immediately after the initial attack succeeds. She entrusts the final blow to Huayan, empowered with the Cyclops attack buff, which has increased her attack and critical power by 15%. The battle begins as a red beam bursts from the Cyclops, but Yungbek intercepts it with his shield, buying Hyejin the chance to use her sword technique. Huayun follows up with a burning rock empowered by her buff that crashes into the creature. Watching the news, Jiha sees the Cyclops dungeon wrapped up without calamity. Then the anchor states that MirWiki's dungeon strategies will be freely distributed abroad. That sparks a realization. His infinite spellbook uploads any recorded strategy to the wiki. He realizes that uploading the Terradrone's attack plan could secure him an endless supply of ether stones. The sudden chime of magical flowers warns Jiha of another monster. He grabs Biome and heads straight in. The Dream Forest deposits him on an isolated landmass surrounded by sea. The Terradrone Knight approaches, urgently seeking his aid for a wounded being called the World Eater. When Jiha asks where, the beetle points towards a hole nearby. A sudden burst of water sprays from the hole, drenching them both. Biome shakes his fur dry while Jiha wipes his face, and in that moment, he realizes the ground beneath them is moving. It's no island but a whale, and not just any whale, the World Eater. Feeling its weakening energy under his touch, it dawns on him why so much magical essence has been drawn to him lately. Without hesitation, he tosses a handful of essence crystals into its mouth, hoping to restore its strength. The whale's pupils suddenly dilate before it opens its massive jaws and a wave of energy explodes from it. When it fades, Jiha and Biome lie sprawled on the sand, dazed by the force. A prompt appears, confirming the World Eater has been restored to its original form thanks to his aid. He sits up to find the mighty World Eater now a small, charming creature splashing in the waves. Its cuteness overwhelms him, and he can't resist diving in to pull it into a hug while Biome simmers in jealousy. He watches in satisfaction as the whale swims off, though Biome is still grumpy. The creature suddenly starts to circle back towards the shore, making him tense, only for it to make a playful flip in the water. When he glances at the shore, he finds a bounty of fresh fish and shellfish on the sand, a gift of gratitude from the World Eater. Jiha gratefully accepts the bounty as Biome snatches a fish without for himself. He waves the little World Eater off, quietly wishing for a future reunion. Hours later, news breaks of a massive sea monster sighted off Korea's southern coast. At night, helicopters sweep the coast with searchlights and a giant octopus bursts from the sea, smashing down helicopters from the sky. It charges toward shore, panic flooding the street. Security scramble, wondering where the hunters are when an even larger shadow surfaces. Its size suggests it might be a disaster-grade monster. The octopus freezes in fear, and the whale swallows it whole. In the control room, officials watch the feed, recognizing the creature as a demigod whale, linked to the first awakened human. A staffer notes its uncanny match to archived records, but they still decide to keep it under observation. They turn to recent reports. Sea monsters that were threatening Korea are now heading towards Japan. Meanwhile, at home, Jiha sits with his sister, who's been acquiring more stocks recently, so brought him old Estrom Kingdom books. He shows her his handmade map, which reaches only up to the Tails River, drawn solely from the Night Troop Commander's logbook. Impressed by the map, she remarks that he describes it as if he'd been there himself. Jiha laughs it off, though inwardly he recalls the Terradrones who roamed the land and helped him chart it. He mentions that adding the Southern Tails River would finish the Estrom Kingdom map. She wonders why he's so devoted to the map. Jiha says it could be useful in the future, but inwardly he's thinking of Han Sung-hyuk, likely still in Gehenna, and how the map and his world tree abilities might help find him. As Sun-young leaves to rest, Jiha tells her to stop by with her team tomorrow for the potions he prepared, especially the extra resistance ones for their rank 3 dungeon raid. Alone again, he feels thankful for her support, and pleased at having uncovered a new rune word. Jiha turns his attention to the spellbook. Flipping it open, he finds a scroll of change, pursuit that can track and confirm the location of any living being. He tears the scroll, picturing Hyejin in his mind. The vision unfolds before him in sharp detail, even revealing the energy she carries. Its precision leaves him genuinely impressed by its value. Biome leaps into his arms, and Jiha, thinking the noise startled him, soothes the cat and suggests they head to the garden for dinner. Back in the forest, he finds the water strikingly clear, likely the World Eater's doing, and notices the solar apple has risen to level 3, boosting its effectiveness. Soon after, Terradrones arrive, delivering him a harvest greater than ever before from the World Tree. The knight grabs Jiha's shirt, points skyward, and soars toward the World Tree. Thinking he's meant to follow, Jiha climbs with difficulty. He makes it to the top, where the sight of the mountain Apeto reveals the Gehenna continent has been outside the garden all along. Biome's hungry rumble pushes Jiha to descend, but the moment he tries a vine coils around his leg, then his body, yanking him into the air. He screams in fear as he realizes it's a monstrous plant and calls desperately for Biome and the Terradrone Knight. Just when things look grim, the plant unexpectedly lowers him to the ground. His thanks turn into surprise as it wraps around him affectionately. He chuckles, realizing the fearsome plant is just a cuddly, clingy type, and he's already thinking of making a post about it on MirWiki. Afterwards, Jiha faces the path toward Mount Apeto, the same place where those who fled the Estrom Kingdom once headed. The Terradrone's words echo in his mind. The dungeon with Han Sung-hyuk's traces lies south of Estrom, near the Tails River, and according to the map, that river runs right beside Mount Apeto. Jiha marks the path toward Sung-hyuk's traces. The garden's barrier, however, blocks his way, so he can only send the Terradrone army ahead. As the army heads for the mountain, Jiha plans to eat with Biome, yet the cat is nowhere in sight, unusual since he never skips a meal. A sudden tap from the sharp-toothed plant makes Jiha jump, seemingly pointing toward where Bayom went. Returning to his store, he sits, missing his pet and thinking of all they still had to do. Lost in thoughts of Bayom, he looks up to find Hyejin entering with a well-dressed man. After he greets him, the man introduces himself as Kim Hyun-sok from Hunter Management, explaining he'd requested her help to see Jiha again. Hyun-sok commends his remarkable potions. Jiha offers them tea and uses the moment to explain to Hyejin why he'd contacted her. He reveals a scroll found in an ancient book, believing it could help locate Mr. Sung-hyuk, the Scroll of Change. Trace leaves them astonished. Upon learning he translated it all by himself, they vow to keep it confidential. The air turns tense when Hyun-sok suddenly asks him if he has a contract with a demigod. Shocked by his knowledge, Jiha listens as the man clarifies he's not here to pry. Instead, he praises his potions for raising hunter survival by 20%, calling him invaluable, and offers his business card as well as the Hunter Management's full support in return. Jiha, taken aback by the praise, wonders if he truly deserves it, but his guests insist he's the organization's future. Hyejin cuts in, explaining that the man only wanted to meet him personally and apologizes. Jiha thanks them, promises a meal in return, then presents the manager with potions and walks him out. Remarking on Kim Hyun-suk's dedication and charm, they step inside. Jiha starts sketching in his book, prompting Hyejin to ask about it. He reveals a near-complete map, which she immediately connects to a mountain and river near the Estrom Kingdom. Jiha tells her to match the terrain to the map and activate the scroll while thinking of Mr. Sung-hyuk, which will reveal his position if close. He wishes he'd tested it, but he ran out of ink. He promises to help her until the search succeeds. She thanks him warmly, eyes brimming, but he insists it's only natural to help a friend. He tells her it's nothing and friends are supposed to help each other. Drawing closer, she tells him to reach out if he ever needs help. Then she notices Byom's absence. This time Jiha breaks out in tears, confessing the cat has run away. There, he spots a wolf. Even through weakness and endless trials, it has never strayed from its duty. Byom declares himself Arctus, the fang of the god, and that he has come for this very creature. The wolf lies bound in heavy chains, surrounded by goblins. It is Growler, the bearer of the will of God. Chains rattle as the wolf struggles while the goblins keep their weapons raised at him. But the balance shifts the instant Byom steps into view, his form now massive. He advances, ordering the servants of evil to leave. The wolf brands Arctus a coward, but the cat responds by breaking his chains in one swift act. Declaring the Growler's defiance meaningless, Arctus announces a turning point. The restoration of the World Tree has begun. Growler rejects Arctus's authority, recognizing only the will of the gods. Without hesitation, the towering cat snatches him and flings him aside. Stunned and powerless, the wolf hears Actus declare he isn't asking for permission, reminding him that he stands as the god's proxy. Actus clamps onto the wolf's scruff, running with purpose despite the beast's protests, urging it to surrender. The scene shifts to Jiha exploring a Category 3 dungeon with fellow hunters. Sun-young inquires why he decided to tag along since there is nothing more than an item box in a ruin-type dungeon. He explains the Black Lion Knight commander had helped Estrom refugees escape through here, hinting that hidden tunnels might still exist beneath the debris. Sun-young points out the familiar architecture, but her teammate is more interested in discovering a rare artifact here. Jiha's eyes fall on Gungbai's sword, and he explains it's a rare knight's longsword, enhancing strength and endurance by 5, agility by 3, and igniting the knight's pledge skill to raise attack by 7% for 5 minutes. The group gasps in shock, questioning how he knows such specific details. Realizing only he can see the item descriptions, he invents a story about recently gaining an appraisal skill. Sun-young immediately sees the connection, understanding why his potion effects are so precise. Spurred on, another teammate asks him to appraise his armor, and Jiha identifies it as light chest armor, which boosts defense by 10% and critical defense by 5%. The group teases Jiha, congratulating him on his new skill and joking about the fortune it could bring. Sun-young, furious at their greed, smacks them with her book and warns Jiha to watch out for opportunists everywhere. Jiha ponders Sun-young's warning while navigating the ancient stone corridors, thinking of seeking advice from Mr. Hyun-suk on managing his abilities. Ahead, they spot a fortress wall torn apart, evidence of a recent monster attack. The party pauses at the banks of the Tails River, awed by its breadth and clear waters. Jiha studies its depth, wondering how the commander carved the tunnel. He sketches the river in his book and makes a mental note to explore behind Mount Apido later. The others crowd around, impressed by how accurately his drawing captures the scene. Sun-young's scroll of creation glows, granting a temporary boost to finding special items during minor setbacks for 20 minutes. At the same moment, a page from Jiha's spellbook tears off and flies through the air. He lunges to catch it, startling Sun-young, who topples into the river and he immediately runs to rescue her. Sun-young is carried off by the river's strong current, prompting Jiha to dive after her. Beneath the surface, the World Eater whale appears and surfaces, carrying them both safely. He ensures she is okay as she coughs up water, thankful for the creature's timely intervention. Jiha thanks the World Eater, gently patting it in gratitude. As the party regroups, they call him over to investigate an unusual sight, a glowing pattern etched into the grass. They wave off the whale as it departs. Sun-young sighs, frustrated at her repeated misfortunes. Her guildmate retrieves a shiny object from her hair. She recognizes it as the last brooch of the artisan, an artifact boosting handcrafting by 10%. Inspired, she tears a page from her book, conjuring a paper dragon that delights everyone. Before leaving the dungeon, the group shares thanks for their day's work. Jiha feels pleased to have found a magic circle which he even copied in his book. He opens his book and the description reveals it as a god-granted dimensional portal, usable only to destinations where the same circle exists. Jiha contemplates the magical circle, determined to uncover how the Terradrones travel freely between Earth and Gehenna. Returning home, the absence of Bayam unsettles him, but he reassures himself it is temporary, and focuses on work to distract from the void. Later, Jiha moves through the empty forest, calling for his companions. Bayam appears from behind, carrying a small pup in his claws, and the gardener immediately feels relieved, and notices how much his cat has grown. Then he sees the small creature and scoops it up, and a prompt reveals the pup's name as Growler, messenger of the gods, and asks if he will help treat its injuries. Without hesitation, he accepts, and the world tree's radiant power flows into Growler. The wolf regains strength and tries to glare at him, but Jiha, charmed by his cuteness, hugs him. He names him Doggo and welcomes him home, while Growler internally critiques his choice. Some days later, the gardener notices the Terradrone's numbers have grown significantly since Doggo's arrival. He deduces it is due to the wolf's unique demigod traits, which enhance animal affinity and leadership. Consequently, the herd has increased by 1.1x in size, and their movement speed has improved by 1.2x. Jiha realizes that as Doggo grows stronger, the entire group will benefit. With its persistent hunter skill that detects any movement within 2 km, he thinks they can safely cross the Grand Plain toward Mount Apito. He rewards him with a red trout ball, but Bayam greedily steals it, and the two clash in a chaotic fight. Their master intervenes, lifting Bayam and Doggo while scolding them for fighting. Then humming bells start ringing, signaling a visitor to his store. Bringing his pets inside, he wonders if he is feeding them too much. As the door opens, Doggo growls at the visitors. Manager Hyunsuk accompanied by the alchemist Chul Hyun. The discussion shifts to Jiha's artifact appraisal skill, which he confirms, delighting and earning a firm handshake from the alchemist. Curious, Jiha inquires why they came. Choi explains it's not a recruitment attempt and commends Jiha's exceptional potions and scrolls, subtly revealing his jealousy as an alchemist. Mr. Hyunsuk proposes a sit-down, emphasizing that both parties have plenty to discuss. They question Jiha on the scope of his new skill. He explains it allows him to accurately determine an artifact's name, description, stats, and skill ratios. He uncovered this ability while crafting potions and confirmed it by testing on various artifacts. The manager observes that it resembles an appraiser class, but he is uncertain of its practical applications. Hyunsuk explains that he brought Choi to help him refine his appraisal skill. Noticing Jiha's willingness to assist hunters, he warns that appraisers are rare worldwide, and if news spreads, crowds of hunters could disrupt his life. He assures Jiha that preparations to manage the influx of hunters are ready. Hwayeon stumbles across a popular post online about artifact appraisers, sparking her curiosity about whether a new hunter with such a skill has emerged. Looking into it, she discovers her own guild, the Eternal Flame, is offering the appraisal service with a strict limit of 60 reservations per day. She's stunned to see all reservations were taken while she was still reading the post. People line up outside the Eternal Flame headquarters, all waiting for Jiha, masked as Master Cat, to appraise their artifacts. Explaining each item's properties, he enjoys the task despite the mask's discomfort, and appreciates having Min Hyunsuk's support. He briefly considers greeting Hwayeon, but hesitates as he previously declined her offer. Meanwhile, Hwayeon erupts in fury before Chulhyun, leaving him anxious as he tries to calm her. Her anger stems from fully booked reservations, but he fears it will worsen once she learns Jiha is the appraiser. She complains that slots are taken for the next 3 months and criticizes him for not informing her earlier. He clarifies that the appraisal service is managed by the manager, and the location was only assigned yesterday since he had free access to the basement. Frustrated that her prized artifacts will take 2 years to be appraised, Cha Hwayeon urges Chulhyun to do something. He just decides to leave, insisting he cannot intervene and urging her to be patient and avoid causing disruption. Still furious, she becomes determined to uncover the newcomer's identity and bend him to her service as an appraiser. At the same time, Master Cat feels an unusual itch in his ears, sensing that someone is talking about him. Later, Choi and Jiha brew their potions side by side and compare their effectiveness. The special potion nullifies ether consumption for 11 seconds and heals 11% of max health over 15 seconds, whereas the very special potion increases the duration to 16 seconds and restores 16% of health, offering a stronger effect. Though the preparation steps were identical, Choi finds Jiha's potions more potent. Jiha blames the ingredients, hiding his advanced alchemy skill as the reason. Confident in their work, they complete the batch for sale tomorrow. Choi, impressed by the potions, suggests they shouldn't be confined to one store. He proposes expanding operations and recruiting more alchemists, bowing to him, calling him sensei and requesting guidance. Our modest alchemist reminds him he's learning too and shouldn't embarrass him. After the senior alchemist left, Jiha dozes off in exhaustion. He wakes in the forest to some of the Terradrones collecting fruits while the wolf and others stack essence stones. Smiling, he greets them and apologizes for arriving late after a long day of potion lessons. Both pets leap into his arms but squirm at the closeness. The Terradrone knight signals urgently and Doggo leaps away to lead Jiha forward. Moments later, an alert warns of monsters in the Great Plains. Growler immediately spurs into action, and uses his command skill and rallies the army, and together they drive the invaders from the Great Plains. As a result, the Terradrone army receives the demigod's blessings, triggering an evolution into a new species. The knight transforms into a scout, while Jiha's efforts purify the Great Plains, unlocking Mount Apito for exploration. He commends his companions, particularly Growler, who revels in the attention. The cat and wolf boast against each other, leading to a brief scuffle. Jiha gathers them both and sets their course toward Mount Apito. As he scans the area, he spots a distant building, realizing it may have served as a Black Lion Knight's shelter. Remembering the map places their shelter on Mount Apito's southern side, he suspects a tunnel could run through the mountain. Touching the protective barrier, he is informed that the World Tree's restoration has finished. Physical interference in Gehenna is barred, yet he can now converse with its bound entities, and his destiny as the deity's representative begins to manifest. Unable to physically interfere in Gehenna, the gardener questions if he can still command the Terradrones. Suddenly he gains a skill, God's Vision, letting him see the area from a divine perspective. While testing the skill, it grants him a godlike view, propelling him high into the sky. Surveying the land, he sees armored survivors forming a defensive stance against a goblin horde. Quickly connecting the dots, Jiha identifies the group as Estrom Kingdom survivors. As the group drives off the monsters, his gaze lands on the captain, and then on the man addressing the captain as Eddie. Recognition strikes. He realizes it is Han Sung-hyuk. The captain assesses the dire situation as orcs continue to attack from the Great Plains. Sung-hyuk discards a slain monster, thinking they may need to rely on monsters for food. But the captain steadies everyone with a promise that they will not go hungry. Han insists that Parojak from their village is conspiring with Baron Grom and stealing their supplies. He urges the prince to let him locate the hidden food, promising to resolve it in 3 days, but the offer is rejected. Jiha immediately recognizes the blonde knight as Edenskal, the prince of Estrom Kingdom. A system interface appears, assigning him a new quest: rebuild the village of survivors. It further reveals that they were forced away from their homeland by the undead, and now face starvation and monster attacks on Mount Apito. The interface issues him his first objective to deliver the Estrom Kingdom's scepter to Prince Edenskal, restoring his rightful claim. It also directs him to track down and eliminate those exploiting the villagers, Baron Grom and Parojak, who manipulate the survivors for their gain. Though unsettled by the unusually detailed quest, he quickly shifts his attention to the importance of locating Han Sung-hyuk. Feeling eager to share the news with Hyejin, he shakes off his excitement, realizing that first he must find a way to bring Sung-hyuk back. Unable to interfere physically, he searches for alternatives, and then it hits him. He can rely on his animal companions. Gathering Biom, Doggo, and the assembled Terradrones, he asks if they know anything about the magic circle. The beetles gather around 2 magic circles to demonstrate him as the scout places essence stones on both. The circles glow green and yellow. Jiha deduces the green is the entrance, the yellow the exit. Acting on this, they fly into the green circle and emerge from the yellow as a demonstration. Confident in his understanding of the circles, he realizes the survivors likely used this very magic circle to escape instead of secret tunnels. He deduces the exit must be near Mount Apito, and locating it could allow him to bring Sung-hyuk back. Jiha studies the circle's sigil, which mirrors a Terradrone, and questions his helpers about their travel methods, only to learn they do not use circle. The scout gestures towards the World Tree, making Jiha think it may connect Earth to Gehenna and serve as a bridge. So, he orders the leader to search around Mount Apito for a magic circle. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a bustling settlement, where villagers unload food supplies, but anxiety spikes as they realize it will barely last a week. Prince Edenskal confronts Parojak, pointing that the received food doesn't match the amount of minerals traded. Parojak deflects, claiming the other party struggles too, their farm overrun by monsters. Sung-hyuk doubts his honesty, yet the prince instructs him to drop the matter. Edenskal questions Parojak on ways to secure more supplies, but he admits he lacks knowledge. At that moment, a man steps forward, suggesting the wild elves might trade for mithril, revealing himself as Baron Grom. Though the prince is well aware of the dangers outside the village, still he listens as Grom explains a valley in Mount Apito, where mithril is abundant. He suggests trading it could solve the food shortages. One of Eddie's men, John, seethes with anger, but he stops him, asking for directions to the valley as his people gasp in shock. Rumors of ogres and griffins at Mount Apito unsettle the villagers, but Baron's grin only widens. Undeterred, Prince Edenskal, driven by duty, resolves to venture out for mithril to prevent his people from starving. Baron Grom decides to plan for a swift return to resume trade afterwards. The prince declares he will join them personally to trade with the wild elves after retrieving the mithril, but they warn him that their village shuns outsiders. He reminds Baron that he too was once a stranger to them. Sung-hyuk, concerned for his life and his lover waiting afar, is reassured by the prince's promise to keep him safe during the journey for mithril. The scene shifts to a sanctuary, where a woman kneels in prayer to a higher being. From the shadows, Baron watches her, sensing that the moment for his plan is drawing near. The story recounts the rise and fall of the Estrom Kingdom on the Gehenna continent. Once a realm of peace and prosperity, it is devastated by a relentless war against monsters. Survivors rally behind Prince Edenskal, fleeing their ruined homeland for Mount Apito to escape the army of undead. However, monsters still threaten, and food remains scarce at the mountain as well. Amidst the turmoil, Baron Grom and Perojak manipulate trade with the wild elves to selfishly hoard resources, forcing Prince Edenskal to take a stand for his people. The narrative then transitions to a present moment, where through God's vision, Jiha watches the group advance toward Mount Apito. Frustration grips him when he realizes that the group has set out to confront the ogres alone. They are dread-grade creatures with thick skin, rapid regeneration, and immense strength despite their low intelligence. With the villagers granting only a vision instead of access to his terradrones, his intervention is complicated. Yet seeing Shunghyuk's unmatched skill and Edenskal's victories over the Black Lion Knights, he thinks they could still shift the battle's outcome. Suddenly Jiha hears someone's mysterious prayer. Far away, in a dim sanctuary, a saintly figure named Selena kneels in prayer, her thoughts devoted to those who bravely fight for their people. Then he receives ethereal messages revealing that Selena, the saintess, is calling for his aid. A new mission, God's merciful prophet, tasks him with spreading belief by helping the village through her guidance. He also learns that whenever Selena prays, he gains a 3-minute window to communicate and exchange items with her. He expresses his excitement, which Selena senses mid-prayer, and he quickly covers his mouth in astonishment. Determined, he organizes the garden's resources, seeking a way to fulfill the mission. A swarm of terradrones gather, some sporting sunglasses with an air of confidence. Jiha confirms both scouts and warriors are present, then briefs them on their next mission. Locate a magic circle at Mount Apito, monitor the survivors, and report anything unusual tonight. He directs the Terradrone Knight to deliver a weapon to Prince Edenskal, aware their current gear is inadequate. As the army marches off, Dago and Beom watch from behind. Dago demands to know if the cat will leave Jiha be, but Beom asserts their master must grow stronger before confronting their true presence. Tension rises as Dago's restlessness meets Beom's caution, and the two break into yet another quarrel. Baron Grom and Perojak relish the prince's absence, seeing it as a chance to advance their schemes. They are convinced that the young prince's inexperience and over-reliance on his sword make him as well as his companion easy targets to the monsters. Baron questions Perojak about a substance the wild elves use to hunt monsters. Perojak confirms that even one sniff sends ogres into a deadly frenzy instead of killing them instantly. But he reminds the fat man to keep quiet and save their celebration for after their scheme is complete. Perojak steps outside, seething with rivalry and loathing for Baron, unaware that some hidden terradrones are watching his every move. Baron Grom laughs confidently, envisioning himself as the new king of Estrom once Prince Edenskal falls, even imagining the Saintess Selena ultimately bowing to his will. Seeing Baron Grom's cruel intentions, Jiha grows desperate and longs for Selena's prayer, knowing he can only act through her. He draws some comfort from the progress being made by the prince who is battling fiercely, breaking ogres apart. Amid the chaos, Edenskal and Han Sung-yuk take charge, pushing back the monsters, and our guy gains confidence that victory may yet be possible. Edenskal strikes down an ogre. It struggles to escape only to be finished off by Han Sung-yuk. Afterwards he asks Eddie if he has another sword since his became dull. The prince offers him his own, but he declines the offer, wishing his own hadn't broken. A massive orc suddenly grabs him and flings him through the air. The prince commands his allies to flee, yet he stands firm, ready for battle. Before anyone can react, the orc is struck by a heavy blow from nowhere, leaving both in shock. Meanwhile, Selena kneels in prayer, pleading for divine protection over the prince and his people. A notification flashes to Jiha that Selena, a disciple of Ark, has successfully offered the first prayer. Then he is prompted to send God's apostle to help the disciple. He presses yes, activating the divine intervention by using the Terradrone Knight as the apostle. On the battlefield, suddenly, the knight descends from the sky, striking the ogre with full force. The monster swings its massive club, but the knight blocks and crushes it. Seizing the moment, Sung-yuk leaps onto the ogre's arm while Edenskal strikes its leg, their coordinated assault driving the beast towards defeat. Han lands after slashing the ogre's arm, but the cut isn't deep enough. Eddie warns him to be cautious. In the next instant, the ogre's leg hurls him through the air, leaving him coughing blood. He crashes but quickly recovers with his companion's support. Han orders everyone to stay back. The Terradrone Knight leaps in, clamping the ogre's hands and smashing it into a second ogre, toppling them both. Edenskal, standing beside the knight, wonders why the creature is helping, but the knight simply winks in response. Jiha notices the Terradrone Knight's strength got better as a god's apostle. A prompt appears allowing him to extend the knight's time as an apostle for 5 essences. It's costly, but the villagers need protection, so he accepts. With renewed energy, Knight clashes with the ogre, golden energy radiating from his form. Eddie recognizes Ark's radiance instantly in the Terradrone. Han staggers up, the prince shouts, asking if he's ready, but that guy is too eager for some more action. They agree that Ogre's resilience makes prolonged battles risky, but Han smirks. He'll finish it in 3 minutes. The Terradrone Knight soars upward and drives its claw into the ogre's shoulder, ripping open a fresh wound. Han seizes the moment, casting a haste spell to sharpen his speed. In a blur, he descends and cleaves the ogre's head clean off. Its body collapses to the ground. Jiha watches in disbelief. One strike from the mightiest hunter was enough to end it. While inspecting his sword, Han finds it shattered, wondering if he had forced too much ether into the blade. The Terradrone's golden radiance flares as it brings down another ogre, the brightness making Han squint. He He fails to notice the beast's corpse toppling toward him until it's too late. He bolts in panic, leaping to safety, but lands right under the falling bulk. Pinned, he grumbles at his rotten fortune. Eddie approaches Han, praising his impressive display, but he murmurs that a sturdier sword would have made it even better. They both turn to thank the towering Pterodrone Knight, admitting their victory was only possible because of it. Knight takes flight, shrinking back into Jiha's palm, earning his commendation. Far away, the Saintess continues her prayer. When a caretaker brings food, she declines, asking that it be given to starving children instead, making the woman worry for her sake. As she bows her head again, an unknown voice echoes in her mind, asking if she can hear. Startled, Selena looks up, her heart leaping. Her prayer has been answered. Mistaking Jiha for Lord Ark, she responds with joy. Knowing the truth but unwilling to waste time, he claims to be Ark's apostle, and urges her to tell Prince Edenskal to head east for something vital. She vows to deliver the message at once. Baron Grom watches from the sides, confused by her strange exchange. Jiha catches sight of the countdown nearing end for communication, and rushes to warn her about Grom's intention, but the connection ends mid-sentence. With the chance gone, he can only trust that she will carry out her task, and decides to move on to other pressing matters. In the aftermath of the battle, Han receives treatment for his injuries. Although he reassures the prince he's used to such injuries, however he admits his strength is drained from overusing ether. Their attention is drawn to the small pterodrones gathering essence stones from fallen ogres. Their curiosity is interrupted when Selena's helper rushes in. Fearing bad news from the village, he asks, but instead hears that the Saintess has received an oracle, commanding him to travel east in search of something important. Though confused, since their mithril goal is north, the divine nature of the message makes him hesitate. The prince turns to Han for council Horfuses to decide for him. Still, he thinks that the giant beetle could be linked to Ark, and suggests investigating it further. The leader announces that he, Han, and Jian will scout ahead separately, instructing the rest to remain behind and wait. Han borrows Jian's sword, who glowers in anger, but in an attempt to calm him, he promises to return him a better one. Meanwhile, Jiha returns back to the real world, and heads straight to Hyejin. His sudden visit after so long catches her off guard, and she asks the reason for his arrival. He requests Sunghyuk's sword, which makes her demand an explanation. In response, he reveals he has located her partner's whereabouts in Gehenna, which leaves her in disbelief. He admits to staying silent before in order to avoid false hope, but now needs her help to bring Sunghyuk back. Stirred by the chance, Hyejin agrees without hesitation. She gives him the Crying Warrior's sword, a weapon bound by contract to Growler, only fully wieldable by its true owner. Jiha recognizes it instantly, which leaves Hyejin surprised enough to ask how he knows the name, which makes him confess his secret identity as the Master Cat Appraiser. When he takes the sword, its sheer weight almost makes him drop it, and she explains it carries ether matching Sunghyuk's immense power. He thanks her for the sword and offers his appraisal skills in return should she ever need it. She offers words of encouragement that strengthens his resolve, and he promises to bring Sunghyuk back before leaving. When he gets home to check on the Estrom survivors, Doggo and Biom block his door. Curious about their presence, he asks why they are there, but they only push each other to speak first. Then Doggo taps his foot, urging him along, and together they venture into the dream forest. Meanwhile, Han pauses at an iron-barred doorway, asking if it has always been there. The prince recalls using it in his escape, and that the Black Lion Night Troop once hid here. Sharing a determined glance, they step in, ready for what's ahead. As they move through the dim tunnel, Eddie explains that many such paths lie beneath Mount Apito, and are rumored to be remnants of a lost tribe. Han asks Eddie if he found him in these tunnels when he mysteriously appeared in Gehenna. Eddie confirms and teases him about repaying the favor for saving his life. Han jokes that slaying monsters should suffice, even suggests toppling the Gimark Empire next. Their talk halts when they spot a red X on the floor. Han knocks on the spot, calling out, only for the floor to collapse beside them. They descend into the gap, Han lighting the way with his ether blade. Deeper inside, a swirl of golden light draws their eyes to an ornate sword Edenskal freezes. This is the legendary seal of the Estrom Kingdom. The shock deepens as he wonders how it ended up in Gehenna. The moment he raises it, the system confirms to Jiha that the Prince Edenskal of Estrom has acquired the seal. It also validates the completion of his first mission by successfully placing an item in a dungeon. A follow-up message appears, revealing from now on any prince who swears allegiance to Ark can now communicate with him through prayer. Additionally, the World Tree's blessing rises to level 3, granting boosted stats and higher resistance. Along with it comes a 1.4x boost in production operations, the ability to interpret ancient languages, and a new skill, Observation Level 1, allowing him to assess an ally's progress and help them awaken new skills once their conditions are met. Arriving at Griffin's Valley, Jiha scans the landscape, spots a cluster of people in the distance. A notification blinks into view. His Pterodrone squad has discovered the valley and requests his aid in hunting griffins. Accepting instantly, he looks down at the disciplined ranks below, and his observation skill reveals a progress bar above his Pterodrone Knight. He wonders how formidable it would become if it awakens a skill. His eyes shift to smaller warriors, finding similar bars. He orders the griffin hunt and distributes pieces of ether stone among the troops. Suddenly Doggo approaches, barking urgently. Jiha kneels to check, but the wolf leaps onto his backpack and pulls out Han's sword. Golden energy engulfs the wolf as it howls. Notifications reveal that Growler seeks to reclaim his power as the messenger of the gods by safe heal, but at the cost of 2,000 essence, and the risk of reverting to a primal state if it fails. Jiha doesn't hesitate, sacrificing nearly all his essence. A blinding surge of gold swallows the wolf, and he shields his eyes. As the golden glow fades, Jiha lowered his hands and finds himself in a vast cosmic expanse. Before him stands Growler, now a majestic, towering wolf. Reaching out, the hero tries to confirm if this is still his doggo, but it growls in protest, refusing to be addressed by that hideous nickname, even by a god's apostle. As his time in this form ends, Growler urges Jiha to grow stronger, calling him Kid with rare affection. As the cosmic space fades, he lands back in the forest. He reminds himself to stay focused and to honor the guidance he received, vowing to do his duty. He finds the knight awaiting his instructions to resume the griffin hunt. He retrieves the spellbook from his backpack and starts writing in the book, triggering a sudden arrival of the griffin flock. Meanwhile, Edenskal can't believe he's found the long-lost seal, Estrom Kingdom's national treasure, calling it a miracle. Han feels disappointed, thinking it was a new weapon meant for him. Afterwards, knowing hesitation could cost them, he urges acting now before Baron Grom turns on him. He offers to handle any threat, but the prince refuses, bound by loyalty to his people despite their past misdeeds. Han warns him that his kindness will only lead to more exploitation. Eddie suddenly spots something in the distance. Han follows his gaze to see Mount Apido glowing. Curiosity drives them forward to investigate. Meanwhile, Jiha's dream forest is overrun by griffins. Though Pterodrones have the advantage in numbers, their flying skills lag behind the griffins, since they struggle with sharp turns, whereas the griffins maneuver effortlessly. Only the Pterodrone knight seems capable of matching them. From a cave, more Pterodrones appear with nets that briefly entangle the griffins, gaining the upper hand, until the griffins shake them off. A notification flashes. The Pterodrone knight's potential maxes out, awakening a shockwave skill. It releases a violent burst of energy, toppling griffins from the sky. The thunderous crash of the griffin's fall echoes through the Apido Valley, reaching Eddie and Han. They spot the same giant beetle that helped them before. It draws a house in the dirt and points towards the village. Realizing the urgency, Eddie thanks the beetle and leaves the area to its care. Watching from afar, Jiha feels sad. This indirect aid is all he can offer for now, but trusts them to keep the survivors safe. They stride towards the village to meet Jian, but stop cold at the sight of a dead man. Edenskal quickly identifies the man as one of Baron Grom's soldiers. Han jokes it's Jian and vows revenge, earning Eddie's annoyed rebuke. The prince is convinced that Baron Grom has likely taken the saint as hostage. Han teases again about Eddie's fiancée being abducted, only to earn a sharp warning that his joke borders on blasphemy. Turning serious, Han asks where Jian could be. Edenskal guesses he's hiding near the village, unlike Han, taunting him to be reckless. Meanwhile, at the village gate, a long line of captured prisoners is herded inside. From the village emerges Selena surrounded by guards. Parajak reports the prince wasn't among the captives. Grom is confident that he'll come to them soon of his own accord. Jian is shoved to the ground as the fat man accuses the prince for abandoning his people. Jian, seeing his true nature, snarls that he regrets not killing him earlier. He orders Jian hanged and the others imprisoned. Selena defiantly screams that they will face Ark's judgment. She lunges at him but stumbles, landing at his feet. Grom crouches, gripping her chin, mocking her god as powerless, and demands she swear loyalty to him instead. Before he can press further, a blade appears at his back. Prince Edenskal, disguised as his soldier, removes his mask and declares he will no longer allow his people to be sacrificed. Parajak rushes to his men demanding action only to find Han among them as he drops his mask. He yanks the man down, dragging him to the prince, warning his allies to strike any who resist, and calls out to Jian that the charade is over, signaling him to join the fight. The tide shifts instantly. Grom and Parojak are dragged to kneel before Edenskal. Grom pleads his worth, but Edenskal reminds him of the trust he betrayed. Lifting his sword, the legendary seal gleaming, he leaves Baron staring in disbelief. With conviction, the prince vows to rebuild the Estrom Kingdom on these lands, and the villagers erupt in celebration. Jiha's interface confirms the second mission's success, the banishment of Baron Grom and Merchant Parojak. Immediately, a third mission triggers. Prince Edenskal, rightful heir, and Selena, divine messenger, have reclaimed their roles. The new objective demands expansion of the survivor village as the cornerstone of the kingdom's rebirth. The mission objectives appear in sequence. First, form a contract with Saintess Selena so she can spread faith among the survivors and enable direct communication without a prayer. Second, Prince Edenskal, holding the king's seal, must prove himself worthy to earn his people's trust. Jiha's role is to cleanse Mount Apeto by eliminating at least half its monsters, and also uncover a hidden location. He has promised that completing these trials will unlock a mysterious sanctuary in his forest. Jiha sees that village expansion is the core objective, and suspects the foggy area holds the sanctuary. He determines that guidance must be given to the survivors through a divine oracle. He decides the Saintess's contract comes first, but before acting, notices the Griffin raid has ended. Redirecting his attention to the Pterodrones, he oversees their victory gathering, orders the disposal of griffin corpses, and then to move the essence stones to the garden. Then, the beetles bring him large golden eggs. He realizes they are hatchable griffin eggs, leaving him both intrigued by the prospect and burdened by his expanding responsibilities. A notification alerts Jiha that the Terradrones have uncovered the rare mineral mithril and a new addition to their ranks, the Terradrone worker, specialized in gathering, mining, and crafting. The tiny worker proudly hands him a freshly mined mineral and receives a reward. He is then offered to choose either a medium or higher rarity artifact, or he could double the number of workers, or get 5,000 essence. He is more curious about the knife, so he chooses the artifact. He watches a rare mithril knife materialize, its resistances and indestructible nature making it perfect for frontline fighters. Seeing its potential against spell-casting enemies best suited for origami hunters like Sun Young, he decides to gift it to her. Terradrone Knight returns, proudly displaying its wings newly plated with mithril amusing Jiha. With these developments settled, Jiha's attention shifts toward the pressing matter of the survivor village. The scene transitions to the villagers gathering around the campfire, celebrating their success. Han, Jian, and Eddie reflect on the plan that helped them seize the exploiters, but Han voices frustration at being left out of the loop. Then the discussion shifts to the prisoners as they decide the fate of Baron Grom and Parojak. The prince admits his decision to exile them tomorrow sparks Han's warning that they may return for revenge, and suggests executing them instead. Eddie dismisses it with a reminder of their past goodwill. Concerns shift to food shortages, pushing Edenskal to plan a northern trade route and talks with the wild elves. Selena rushes towards them, urging the prince to witness something. She prays, summoning golden script in the air. Jian reads it aloud, which says the heir of the royal family must follow the guidance of the Apostle of God. Selena explains the Apostle of Ark entrusted her with this message. Selena's prayer seals the Saintess contract instantly. Her faith reaches 100%, granting Jiha direct communication with her through divine oracle. Han speculates the golden message might concern the giant beetle, whose glow Eddie had matched to Ark's color. Hearing this, Selena asks about the creature, and Han explains its pivotal role in their last battle, which makes them think that the Ark might actually be looking after them. He asks her to request the Apostle's aid in guiding him out of Gehenna and back to his home, and she agrees without hesitation. With that matter settled, Jiha turns his focus toward leading them to Parojak's hidden food stores, as the Terradrone Knight's time runs short as an apostle in Gehenna. Back in the garden, Jiha calls for Dogo and Bayom, only to remember Dogo is still in Gehenna, which unsettles Bayom. Then he spots a pile of golden essence that he gained by posting the Griffin strategy on Mir Wiki. Meanwhile in Griffin Valley Dungeon, Sun Young's team is testing out the strategy on the Mir Wiki. She unleashes a flurry of glowing pages forming a web-like trap that descends upon the Griffins, their movements abruptly halted mid-flight and sending them crashing down. Hyojin charges in, slicing through the grounded Griffins with her sword rampage. The group marvels at how simple the Mir Wiki walkthrough made the fight. Huayun then unleashes a sudden firestorm, startling her allies. They remind her of their presence on the field, but she teases them for standing there. The ground suddenly shakes. A boulder crashes from a cliff, revealing a hidden cave in its wake. Inside the cave, they speculate it could be a hidden dungeon. Hyojin urges a quick inspection and retreat, though Huayun pushes for advancing with combined firepower, but the Sword Witch stands firm on caution. As they proceed, Gyungbek accidentally triggers a trap, falling injured. The healer tends to him, warning others for more traps. Sun Young notices a magic circle beneath him, and when she pushes him to examine it, they find that it is the same circle they found before. Meanwhile in Gehenna, Baron Grom and Parojak are paraded through the village square. Jian questions the prince's choice of exile over execution, but Edenskal is resolute. When Grom threatens him, Edenskal's sword flashes to his neck with a deadly warning to kill him if he ever disturbs his people. The two exiles are then set free and they flee, swearing revenge. Afterwards, Han questions the prince's leniency, but Jian silences him with a warning. Jiha, watching, feels proud to aid the kind-hearted prince. Sensing growing danger at Mount Apido after the ogre's fall, he activates God's apostle skill to guide him. So he tasks the Terradrone Knight with protecting the survivors. A glowing magic circle appears in the village. The knight uses it to teleport straight to Gehenna, startling the villagers. Realizing this could be the God's apostle guiding them, the leader orders the group to follow at a safe distance northward through the forest. Remembering the beetles' role at Griffin Valley, they guess it must be aware of something they are not. They surmise that the path they are taking might be the same one used for trading by Parojak. Han expresses hope of finding a better weapon, just as the knight halts in front of the base of a cliff. They watch in confusion as suddenly the knight smashes through the rock face, revealing a hidden barrier, something they missed earlier. Startled, Han yells at Knight, but Eddie scolds him for being mean to the beetle. Thanking Knight for his assistance, the prince assures it they can proceed on their own, so the beetle flies away. Moments later, the rest of the party arrives, worried by the noise, but are calmed by the prince. Han then takes Jian inside to investigate, where they uncover hidden food supplies and crates, proof of Baron Grom and Parojak's treachery, and the reason the villagers were starving. Han rushes back to inform the prince of their discovery about resources that could sustain the starving village for weeks. The prince feels relieved, their most urgent problem solved, while Jian urges them to leave quickly before monsters close in. Han, disappointed at not finding any weapons, begins thinking about searching for a way home. Edenskull offers his help. Before they can plan further, a massive wolf suddenly emerges, towering over the villagers. Panic spreads, carts are abandoned, and the crowd scatters. Han instantly realizes the area's lack of monsters was due to this predator's presence. Edenskull and Han draw their swords. The prince tries to form a strategy, but Han reminds him that a leader's duty is to protect his people, urging him to evacuate while he holds the beast off. As the villagers flee under their leader's command, Han steps forward to face the wolf. A sudden notification appears. The Howling One's trial begins. Confused, Han has no time to ponder. The wolf lunges, forcing him into battle. The trial between Han and Growler turns brutal as the beast's crushing blows drive him back. Realizing this isn't an ordinary test, Han activates the Ether Blade and his sword crackles with energy. He charges, but the wolf evades and counters with a paw strike that hurls him through the forest. Staggering up, Han realizes the monster's strength is at least disaster grade. At the same time, goblin-like creatures swarm the supply cart, forcing villagers and knights to fight their way back to the safety of the village. Though Edenskull is helping the others, he feels compelled to help Han in the deadly trial against the wolf. Even Jiha panics as he sees his god's apostle skill still on a 22-hour cooldown and realizes he cannot intervene for the remaining 4 minutes of his trial. He wonders what this crucial quest is, since the fog conceals everything from him. Growler springs at him again, but Han dodges narrowly, and wonder where this creature even came from since it's getting him all fired up. Activating his haste spell, our mighty hunter charges at the wolf with newfound speed. As he closes in, the wolf snaps at him, but Han blinks forward, teleporting above it, leaving the beast snapping at empty air. He dives with his sword, certain of a clean hit, but the wolf sidesteps at the last instant. His blade slams into the earth, leaving him open, and Growler's paw slams into him, flinging him violently into a tree. Han forces himself up, only to see the beast approaching with calm, measured steps. The Howling One passes its verdict that Han lacks the strength of his bloodline and is unfit to wield its power. But Han refuses to yield, rejecting the beast's verdict, calling the mighty beast a dog. The insult ignites Growler's fury, and its paw crashes down, crushing him beneath its weight. Han's thoughts race. He cannot die here, not when someone is still waiting for him in his world. The wolf's jaws close on his blade, snapping it like a twig. Then, at the very brink, a sudden notification echoes. The trial is over. Han has passed the Howling One's test. Growler growls, frustrated at its own softness, and calls him a mere peasant bound by fate, one simply granted another chance. The creature urges him to grow strong enough to carry the wolf's name. As a reward for passing the trial, the wolf conjures a sword with its power. As it descends, Han's eyes widen. This is his own sword, the very one he once earned as a dungeon reward. This makes him question the Saintess's words, whether a divine being truly exists. But the cries of villagers tear through his thoughts, and he resolves to hurry back to Eddie and the others. With the trial complete, Growler's colossal form fades, shrinking into a small, cuddly wolf as it returns to Jiha. He can't contain himself. He scoops the pup into his arms, marveling at its cuteness, and smothers the once dreaded beast with playful affection. The prince and his knight race for the village gate as the goblin horde chases them. A massive goblin lord bursts through the horde. Edenskull charges, carving down enemies desperately to slow the tide, but the goblin lord reaches the gate. The beast tries to smash the gate, while the villagers strain to hold it closed from inside. The horde closes in and their master channels dark energy in its weapon, preparing a powerful attack. At that decisive moment, Han appears astride Growler. With a single swing of his legendary blade, the goblin lord is beheaded, and the horde scatters. Edenskull, stunned by the wolf at his side, demands an explanation. Han dismounts and reveals the beast tested him, but recognized his fate and returned the sword he first earned in another world. To prove it, he releases Growler from its summoned state, the wolf dissolving in radiant light as he names it not a beast, but his guardian. He thinks that this sword the wolf brought him from his world could be the key to find his way back. Edenskull mutters about Han's uneasy bond with Faith, but the moment is cut short as the Saintess rushes from the gate in concern. The prince reassures her all is safe, and she grips his hand in gratitude. Han throws a teasing jab her way. She fires back, and together they return to the village under a lighter mood. Jiha, still watching them while cradling Doggo, silently vows to bring Han home one day. Then they return to the forest where Biom awaits. Seeing the shrunken wolf, the cat grabs it by the scruff despite its protests, mocking it for finally doing something useful. Biom drops him to the ground, telling him to focus on recovering. He even pats Growler, though the wolf loathes the unwanted affection. Snuggling into Jiha's lap afterward, Biom listens as Jiha reveals his theory. The World Tree itself might have guided Growler to pass the sword to Shungyuk. Jiha resolves to share this with Hyejin tomorrow, but the decision is cut short by the ringing humming bells. Expecting trouble, he opens it, only to find not just his sister and her friends, but also Hyejin and Huayan. Though the guild leader glares at him for taking too long in opening the door, he quickly ushers them inside. Jiha asks if an early morning quest brought them here, but the group insists their visit carries greater urgency. His sister shows him the sketch of the magic circle, and Hyejin explains they found its duplicate inside a dungeon where griffins appeared. At the mention of griffins, Jiha realizes it's the same circle once used by the Terradrones. Huayan proudly recalls how her Inferno cannon exposed the hidden chamber, though her teammates grumble about nearly being roasted in the process. Jiha rises and asks for a moment. He returns hauling 7 massive essence stones onto the table, urging each of them to take one. Heejin stares in disbelief, never having seen specimens so large. He explains that placing them on the magic circle and pouring mana into it will open a portal to Gehenna. He asks them to use it to retrieve Han Seong-hyuk, entrusting the Sword Witch with the lead. Emotional yet determined, she accepts the responsibility proudly. Soon, they stand before the dungeon entrance, ready to carry out the task. Back in the garden, he notices the valley thriving now that the monsters are gone, and wonders if villagers might soon settle here. Yet, the peace is fragile. Monsters fleeing the plains have regrouped on Mount Apeto. His thoughts are cut short when he spots Eddie and Han surrounded by goblins all alone. Rather than despair, they exude confidence. Han summons Growler, renaming it Wolfie, though Jiha cringes at the name. Mounting the beast, Han charges ahead, cutting down goblins with a single sweep, his skill a reminder of why he is a top-ranked hunter. Prince Edenskal matches his stride, his swordsmanship rivaling Han's own. Their combined assault scatters the horde until Han calls out to Eddie, who is locked in heavy combat. The prince commands him to push forward while he stays behind to cover the advance. The monsters regroup for another assault. Eddie, though outnumbered, holds his ground until movement above catches his eye. A giant Terradrone swoops down, seizing his cape and carrying him away from enemies. Jiha decides not to waste God's apostle skill at this moment when everything seems under control. Han and Wolfie give chase, following the beetle's flight until Mount Apito comes into view. Eddie glances down, reassured that Han is keeping pace. He barely manages a word of thanks to the beetle before it dives, hastening their descent. They hit the ground before Han, Eddie stumbling to stay upright. Han remarks that the villagers aren't used to flying, but the Terradrone ignores him and lifts off again. Han releases Wolfie with a brief word of praise, then turns to Eddie, asking why he brought him to the Wild Elves when his strength lies in battle, not diplomacy. Eddie replies that he'll handle the talks himself, but wants Han present in case the elves, renowned for their wisdom, know a way to send him back home. Han teases him about being desperate to get rid of him, but the banter dies instantly as an arrow suddenly whistles past them. From the branches above, an elf orders them to stop. Edenskal steps forward, claiming to represent a survivor village on Mount Apeto, requesting a dialogue with them. But the elves only draw their bows, declaring they no longer deal with humans and demand they leave. Edenskal unsheathes his sword, preparing for a fight, leaving Han startled when more elves emerge and surround them. Han urges him to think twice before picking a fight with them, but the man reveals his identity as the Estrom Prince, offering his sword as proof. The elf inspects the seal and immediately connects it to their enemies, Grom and Parojak. Without hesitation, he places a blade to the prince's throat, demanding surrender. Edenskal insists he seeks to make amends and denounces Grom and Parojak's crimes, but the elf leader accuses him of endangering their people by stealing their food. Seeing no alternative, Eddie drops his sword and signals Han to comply. The elves then blindfold and restrain them, marching the pair toward the village for judgment. Led in chains through the wild elf village, Han's doubts grow heavier with each step. He curses their choice to surrender, thinking a fight followed by negotiation would have been safer. Eddie, however, stays calm, trusting the elves' judgment and believing they'll get a chance to explain. The guards throw them into a fortified cell. Han fumes, regretting following the prince, while Eddie reassures him, pointing out he could snap the bars any time if escape became necessary. Han eventually lies down to rest, while Eddie stays alert, wondering just what Grom and Parojak did to earn such hatred. As night falls, curious young elves gather outside the cell, whispering at the rare sight of humans. But before long, older elves chase them away with harsh words. Moments later, the archer escorts the elder elf to their cell. The elder takes one glance and immediately recognizes the prince. He commands the guards to release the captives, remarking that Edenskal could have easily broken free if he truly wished. Edenskal, startled by the recognition, asks how the elder knows him, only to hear that he had once seen the prince from afar in his youth, back before Estrom lost connection with the elves. When asked why they had come, Eddie requests clarification about Grom and Parojak's actions. Croydel, the archer, snaps at him, convinced the prince is playing dumb, but he calmly explains that he came to take responsibility, even without knowing what crimes were committed by them. The elder presses them further, and Eddie recounts how the Mount Apeto survivors nearly starved because Grom and Parojak had hidden food, which they uncovered only after exiling them. The elder recalls the mountain was overrun with monsters, but Han counters they already cleared most of them with the help of the giant beetle, though a few still remain. Even so, the elves remain doubtful. Grom and Parojak had claimed their people weren't from Mount Apeto at all, but from north of the Tails River, where they supposedly took the food from them. This makes the blonde knight remember how confident the exiles looked when leaving. It was clear they had a backup plan. Croydel warns the elder not to be deceived again. Yet the prince calls it all a misunderstanding and proposes to reopen trade routes and drive back the monsters. But the mention of trade only confuses the elves, who argue no such exchange ever existed despite Edenskal's claim of sending minerals and halti in return. The pieces fall into place. The elder agrees, suspecting a third party north of the river where Grom and Parojak likely diverted the goods. Still, suspicion outweighs reason, and the elves hold back their trust. Prince Edenskal presses for a way to prove their innocence. The elder demands the hall once promised to the elves and declares the prince will stay as collateral, while Han, the one belonging to the other world alone, may leave to retrieve it. Han is surprised the elves know his otherworldly origin, and they explain that their bond with the world tree grants them awareness of those from other dimensions. Realizing Eddie was right about their wisdom, he accepts the terms. Before leaving, Han insists on reclaiming his sword. After tense hesitation, the elves return it, but warn him that any reckless act will cost the prince's life. Han asserts Eddie's power is greater than they assume, but Croydell scoffs at the notion of a human surpassing him. Just then, Mr. Beetle descends from the sky and the elves are shaken, recognizing him as a Pterodrone, the legendary workers of the World Tree, long believed extinct. Meanwhile, Jiha observes the wild elf village unlocks as soon as Han and Prince Edenskal arrive. A string of notifications confirms that he can now access this new area. The countdowns on abilities are reset, but the fourth mission titled Secrets of the Wild Elf remains locked until the Survivor Village quests are complete, which means he must first deal with the monsters at Mount Apedo. Back at the Wild Elf village, Han greets the Pterodrones. Acting under Jiha's command, the Pterodrone Knight delivers a massive mithril crystal to the Elf Elder. The elves freeze in shock not just by the crystal, but seeing the loyalty of the legendary Pterodrones to these outsiders. The Pterodrone Knight gestures toward a patch of green herbs, signaling its intent to take them, herbs vital to its master's mission of sending Han back home. Freed on the Elder's orders, Han and Eddie step out, but Croydell's hostility toward Eddie nearly sparks a clash. Han intervenes to calm things, only to be brushed aside. At that moment the Elder returns Han's sword. Seizing the moment, Edenskal politely inquires if his companion, drawn into this world 3 years ago, has any chance of returning. The Elder answers that the World Tree may still open a path, guiding him back the way he first arrived. Edenskal recalls the scene of Han's arrival, unconscious by the river, near the ruins of the royal palace. The Elder explains that the real link is at the roots of the World Tree. He reveals that Han's world and theirs are parallel realms, joined by the same ancient root, and that intersections occur when energy flows through the tree. He identifies Mount Apedo as one such convergence point. He points out that Mount Apedo sits at the end of one such route, making it a place where people from other worlds occasionally appear. Since they have befriended the Pterodrones, he suggests seeking their aid, for they are workers of the World Tree and able to travel along its routes. Han recalls the Pterodrones' use of a transport circle and realizes they may guide him back. Eddie expresses gratitude and agrees to the Elder's advice. The topic shifts to the trade routes blocked by monsters. Though short on soldiers, the prince resolves that they must at least attempt to reclaim the path. The Elder entrusts Croydell with the task of guiding the humans and judging their sincerity, reminding him that his return is essential to the village. Eddie gives his word, and Han, irreverent as always, jokes about teaching the archer some social skills. Though Croydell's discomfort shows on his face, the Elder reminds him to put the village first. Mounted on Growler, the party sets out under Croydell's lead. Edenskal soon notices their route differs from before, and questions it. He learns they are headed for a hidden tunnel beneath Mount Apedo, though Croydell warns the passage is infested with griffins. Han insists the beetles cleared them, provoking yet another petty quarrel with the skeptical elf. After some time, they reach the tunnel's entrance, remarkably intact despite centuries passing. As they proceed deeper, the elf explains it was once built by the World Tree's workers, though most such routes have long been lost to monsters. His calm tone almost fools Eddie and Han into thinking he's warming up, but Croydell shuts that thought down, saying he's only here because of the Elder. He warns them to stay alert. Roots of the World Tree tend to attract monsters. Eddie asks if the World Tree even exists, calling it a myth. The elf scoffs, saying humans are too insignificant to even question such a being. Suddenly Han's sword begins to shine. Startled, the elf demands to see it, and upon closer study, declares it a divine instrument forged by the god who watches over the World Tree. When Han asks why it glows only now, the elf answers it is reacting to some disturbance hidden within the cave that will require the sword's power. Meanwhile, the hunters at the Griffin Cave struggle against a horde of revenant warriors. Huayun's firestorm wipes out most, but one remains standing. Hyejin follows up with a fluid water spout, yet they keep coming. The endless resistance makes the group realize they face disaster-level undead beings far stronger than expected. Determined to end the battle, Huayun warns her allies to stand clear and summons a wave of molten fire, reducing the undead to ash. The display leaves her companions in awe, swelling her pride. But just as the flames die down, Hyejin spots a looming shadow behind her leader. She shouts a warning for her leader but is too late. Huayun turns to face a towering armored figure, the Revenant King, a disaster-class threat. The sudden threat forces the team to retreat, but Hyejin is knocked back. The Revenant King pushes toward Huayun, but Gyungbaek protects her. Sun Young blinds the enemy with paper charms to stall the monster. The hunters regroup, quickly checking on each other's safety. Hyejin senses the power of this enemy is far overwhelming than dead grade. Just then, divine text appears before her eyes. She receives the worker's blessing, a scroll of change bestowed through Jiha's essence. With God's wind, her stats surge, movement speed doubled, attack speed boosted by half, and a new passive skill, Wind of Victory, restoring health with 3 chained strikes. Though she isn't sure how it all happened, but her hope returns. In truth, Jiha had quietly used his essence to empower her, and another notification tells him he can invest more essence to grant even greater support. Seeing the Revenant King's terrifying strength, Jiha is grateful for the green herbs he gathered from the wild elves. He prepares more scrolls to help the group. The Revenant King launches a savage blow, forcing Sungho to raise his shield. The impact rattles them, but the hunters instantly recover and press forward, knowing the fight must end before Sungho falters. Hyejin tests her newfound strength, aiming for the monster's armor, but her blade cannot pierce it. Recognizing the flaw, she shifts her focus to the joints. On her command, Soon-young creates an opening with her paper spell, and Hwayeon follows with an explosive incantation that consumes the monster in fire. Kyungbak mutters aloud, wondering if the explosion had finished the monster, only to earn Hwayeon's furious glare for jinxing them. As expected, the Revenant King emerges, barely harmed, its armor scorched but intact. Yet the melted gaps are enough for Hyejin to unleash a flurry of daggers, slicing through the exposed openings. The counterattack is immediate. The monster swats her aside, sending her crashing back. Hwayeon snaps at Kyungbak, blaming his words, but Sungho reminds them to quit bickering and face the real threat. Watching this unfold, Jiha panics. He burns more essence, forcing enhancements onto the hunters just to buy time till Hyejin and Hwayeon recover. He sends them scrolls of change. Iron blood surges through Sungho, increasing his defense by 30%, with a 12% chance to nullify attacks entirely, while Gyunbaek is blessed with the god's wind boosting his speed by 70% and attack speed by 30%. He also gains a passive skill, Wind of Victory's healing effect, that converts 7% of the damage from last hit into health upon 3 consecutive hits. Even so, Jiha doubts it will be enough, silently praying Hwayeon can turn the tide when suddenly a radiant glow appears. From it, Growler's massive form bursts forth, tearing into the Revenant King's shoulder. Jiha recognizes the radiance of Han Sung-hyuk's sword, and feels overwhelming sense of relief at his arrival. Han's blade tears into the Revenant King's shoulder, stunning the hunters who gape at his sudden arrival. Hwayeon recognizes him instantly. He releases Wolfie from the summon, but soon realizes his sword strike wasn't enough to finish the enemy. The Revenant King rises once again. Han braces himself, distracted only when he spots the healer's golden light over Hyejin's unconscious body. Concern gnaws at him for his spouse. Hwayeon comes up behind him, surprised by his sudden return. He presses her for answers, though she has some questions of her own. She insists that they must deal with the monster first. Meanwhile, the Revenant King sends a signal summoning a wave of skeletal reinforcements. Sungho checks Hyejin, but even constant healing won't wake her. So, he coordinates with Gyunbaek to stall the horde while Han and Hwayeon handle the Revenant until she recovers. Hwayeon blasts the monster with her blazing inferno cannon, while Han slashes in frustration, realizing that even their combined power isn't enough to bring down the beast. Its armor shrugs off every blow, forcing him to decide there's only one option left: shatter it to pieces. Channeling Weapon Breaker into his sword, he collides with the Revenant King in a cataclysmic explosion that shakes the cavern. The backlash sends Han crashing to the ground, blood running from his nose. He looks up only to find the Revenant King still standing, completely unfazed. He refuses to believe that this is a disaster-grade threat. To him it feels like destruction-grade. The king lunges at him. Hwayeon fires a massive explosion to intercept, but the Revenant breaks through and slams Han to the ground before he can dodge. As the dust clears, his eyes widen. Prince Edenskal is atop the monster, with his blade lodged in it. A voice suddenly resonates in Eddie's mind, the apostle telling him the weakness lies in its core. Snapping out of his shock, he immediately warns the others. Meanwhile, Jiha feels relieved that his observation skill revealed the monster's weak point, which he quickly relayed to Eddie. Yet reaching the core means tearing apart its armor first. Realizing he only has one blessing left, Jiha prays for the right miracle and scribbles into his spellbook. The scroll that forms is perfectly suited for the battle. Han receives the Worker's Blessing, a scroll of change that grants him ultimate focus. His strikes become unavoidable for 5 seconds and pierce all defenses. Eddie seizes the chance, driving his blade into the core. The Revenant King shrieks in agony, the shockwave throwing him aside. Han praises Eddie's effort before summoning Growler, whose fangs sink into the monster. It distracts the Revenant long enough for Han to shatter the core completely. The Revenant lets out a deafening roar before disintegrating into dust. As the skeletal minions vanish with it, relief surges through the hunters as they celebrate. Eddie helps Han to his feet, teasing him to greet the others since he clearly seems to know them. The hunters meanwhile crowd around Hyejin. Slowly, her eyes flutter open, tears brimming as she hears Sung-hyuk's voice. She rushes to hug him as Han whispers reassurances. Jiha quietly watches the heartfelt reunion. At that moment, a notification reveals the hidden tunnel is cleared, restoring the flow of energy to the World Tree and accelerating its restoration. In the distance, the cry of a being named Arkfoot echoes, a sound Jiha wonders might belong to a new demigod. A golden unicorn bursts across the sky, its speed breathtaking, leaving a trail of light in its wake. Growler and Biam freeze, stunned by the sight, then whisper strategies on how to intercept it. Biam catches the faint scent of the ocean clinging to its mane, guessing it has returned from the far edge of the continent. They suspect it must be restless in the absence of a god at the moment. Growler weighs blocking or striking as the unicorn nears, but Biam reminds him of its incredible speed. Any mistake could land them in its crosshairs. Neither of them is confident. Meanwhile, Jiha hears Doggo barking from the garden and peeks to check on the pets. His eyes widen as a radiant golden figure flashes past. At first, he mistakes it for a horse, but the way Growler and Biam react convinces him it might be a demigod. Then it clicks. This must be Arkfoot, the demigod once ridden by the Ark. He attempts to communicate with the creature but can barely track it as it streaks across the landscape. It pauses only briefly before charging toward Jiha, who shields himself with his hands. Then, unexpectedly, the creature settles quietly by the Ark. He gently pets the unicorn, marveling at its soft fur and wondering if the mystical world tree helped calm it. Biom and Growler watch from afar, relieved at their plan's success. Growler muses what name their master might pick for it. Jiha, true to his terrible naming habits, calls it Pani, simply because it rhymes with pony. Spellbound by the unicorn's grace as it darts off, Jiha considers how a demigod's true form can be even more captivating. Pani soon returns, carrying a rare red herb with its root intact. Jiha recognizes it's a priceless material for red ink, and with the root, he can cultivate it for further use. He rewards Pani, encouraging the unicorn to eat freely from the garden after its long travels. The unicorn instantly gathers all the carrots into its hooves, glaring suspiciously at the would-be thieves. Their attempt to approach ends in a ridiculous scuffle. After a moment of peace, Jiha rises to prepare red ink, its name hinting at an aggressive hue. He decides to create it anyways in order to find out its potential. He bottles the liquid, pondering how to explain the unicorn's presence. While dogs and cats are common in Seoul, a pony would surely raise questions. The next day, Jiha sits in his shop, reflecting on the lack of space, and realizing it's unsuitable for Pani, who enjoys running freely, something difficult to do in Seoul. Suddenly, a mysterious gate forms inside the store, opening onto a grassland. The portal's duration is marked as infinite, which hints at a direct connection to the world tree. At that moment, the shop door swings open. Hyejin and Sunghyuk step inside, greeting Jiha warmly. Hyejin bows deeply, thanking him for helping bring Sunghyuk back, and Sunghyuk echoes her gratitude. Embarrassed, Jiha insists anyone would have done the same. Hyejin presses the point, acknowledging the risks he took, and he welcomes them inside for tea. Noticing Pani, Hyejin crouches to pat the adorable creature, asking him where he found it, but he politely declines to say. Jiha conversed with them for quite a while and found that Sunghyuk, though safe, still dreams of the other dimension, unable to fully let go. For a while, peaceful days follow, but the calm is shattered when a flock of griffins appears in Jiha's dream forest, leaving him anxious over how to handle them. Overwhelmed by a brood of energetic baby griffins, just 4 days old, Jiha worries about feeding them all. Their rapid growth and massive appetites quickly deplete his meat supply, leaving Biom and Doggo exhausted from constant supervision. He calls to his Pterodrone Knight, directing it to lead the hatchlings to the mountains better suited for their needs. Hovering above, the beetle captures their attention, and the baby griffins obediently follow to their new home. Jiha receives a message from the World Tree, acknowledging that his legion is guiding purified monsters to the sanctuary, a place modeled after Gehenna. He is tasked to restore its ecosystem. The World Tree's blessing upgrades, raising his animal amiability to level 3, and grants him a new skill, Sanctuary Development. Alongside this, Jiha gains the ability to observe allies' potential, including whether they possess awakening skills, ultimate abilities that consume all ether and leave users exhausted. Typically only the top hunters have them. Testing the power, he discovers while he lacks an awakening skill himself, Pterodrones hold an awakening skill, Ability Absorption, allowing them to randomly absorb monster abilities. If a skill is incompatible with their form, they must learn Metamorphosis from a being called Logos to use it. He also realizes he can guide other hunters toward awakening their skills by offering subtle hints to those close to him. Testing out his Sanctuary Development skill, he's prompted by the system to use essences to determine what resources the sanctuary requires, which he can then provide from his garden. As soon as he spends 500 essence to unlock access to the sanctuary, the fog shrouding the area lifts. He touches the lake water, testing his ability to modify the environment, inadvertently causing a minor earthquake that damages the sanctuary. He spends 100 essence to restore the damage, and realizes each of his actions with the skill will directly impact the sanctuary. He activates the skill to assess the area's needs, and the system flags poor soil quality, requiring worms to revitalize it. Just then, the Pterodrones arrive, carrying worms to help. He observes the fog recedes further, unlocking a new area, and a massive mantis shrimp comes into view. Jiha recalls Korean news reports describing them as dread-grade monsters, capable of annihilating everything nearby with a single shockwave, requiring 6 to 7 hunters to defeat just one. The Pterodrones prepare for battle, equipping themselves with the World Tree's rind as sturdy shields for defense. They advance, but the shrimp's shockwaves force them to retreat and focus on healing. Then he remembers the elixirs he made from World Tree fruit and provides them to the Pterodrones. A golden glow envelops them, restoring strength and providing a combat boost. Re-energized, the beetles advance with shields raised. The shrimp's shockwaves clash against their defenses, but they recover quickly thanks to the elixir. The knight cuts a shrimp in half. Jiha deduces that the shockwaves originate from the claws, and they can win if his army overwhelms them in number. After the intense battle, the Pterodrones celebrate their victory. Suddenly the knight's body glows as it inherits the mantis shrimp's powerful shockwave skill. Back in his shop, Jiha receives a call inviting him to the beach. Moments later, Sungho and the group arrive in a car, surprising him with their quick timing. Though he didn't expect so many people to join them, even his pets tag along. The group chats animatedly. Someone remarks on how adorable the pony is, while his sister checks whether Jiha has eaten. Seungho jokes that trips are more fun with company, and Jiha agrees, though he didn't expect Hwayeon and Chulyun to join, which he finds rather odd. His sister, curious like always, asks where he found it since they are highly rare in Seoul, but he brushes it off saying he found it in a random dungeon. The van hums along, filled with laughter and chatter, carrying the group toward their summer adventure. Arriving at the beach, Jiha takes in the breathtaking view bathed in golden light. The van parks by the shore, and the group unloads, calling him to settle into the hotel. Jiha savors the warmth of friendship, glad he agreed to come, hoping the joy lasts forever. Later, while finding a quiet moment on the terrace, he is interrupted by Hwayeon. He expresses surprise at her joining this trip, which makes her wonder if she's crashing the party, but he reassures her everyone's thrilled she came. When he asks about the others, she explains her envious guildmates are racing over as they speak. Out of nowhere, emergency broadcast screams a warning for a dread-grade mantis shrimp at the shore and urges immediate evacuation. Frustrated at the prospect of the monster spoiling their vacation, she decides to confront the threat herself. A surge of fiery energy races toward Jiha, imprinting a glowing golden rune on his hand. A sudden explosion hurls rocks in his direction, as Hwayeon leaps to save him. They check on each other as their friends gather, quickly deducing the blast came from the mantis shrimp, likely moving from the beach towards their land. Everyone is ordered to hold the line until reinforcements arrive. Hwayeon, making calls to locate her guildmates, instructs them to meet at the shore to face the dread-grade monster. Seeing Jiha approach, she tells him to go somewhere safe, knowing he will be in danger if he stays. Knowing he can't fight directly, Jiha remembers the special potion stored in his cabin that could aid the team, so he rushes to fetch it. A powerful shockwave from the mantis shrimp scatters the hunters across the battlefield. Seungho quickly calls Min-seok for protective buffs, stepping forward to draw the creature's attention and provoke it into attacking. This gives the rest of the team a chance to strike at its vulnerable joints. Yoongbak moves in cautiously, but the mantis shrimp lashes out with its claws, striking him hard enough to make him cough blood. Soon-young retaliates with a barrage of paper missiles and blinding spells, followed by a powerful spell meant to temporarily freeze the monster in place. The projectiles hit, yet the shrimp's skill keeps it from taking critical damage, underscoring its dangerous dead-grade ranking. Soon-young fears her mana will deplete if she continues at this pace, but then a burst of fire beams at the monster. She turns to see the Eternal Flame Guild, led by Hwayeon, is finally here to reinforce the battle. The guild leader urges everyone to focus on eliminating the monster first, promising they can resume their vacation once the threat is gone. With the guild joining, coordinated attacks hammer the creature's claws. They begin to slow the monster's assault, giving them a renewed sense of optimism. Seungho attempts a bold charge but is interrupted as a meteor spell rains down massive boulders, throwing the team into disarray. The hunters scramble to avoid the falling rocks, though some are caught by the impact. The sudden devastation earns its name, disaster. A silent onslaught that crushes hope. From the debris, the king of mantis shrimp, Stone Mantis, emerges, towering and menacing. The system warns that the stone mantis targets all humans in its path, and massive rock barrages that came earlier is the creature's gravity spell. Seungho calls for defensive buffs, raising his shield but is slammed into a wall by a direct hit, bloodied and battered. His wife screams as panic spreads through the team, afraid of dying here. Hwayeon motivates everyone and uses her fire magic to melt some of the incoming rocks, which buys precious seconds. She can only maintain the spell twice more without her scroll. Her distraction proves costly as a massive rock flies at her too fast for her spell to stop. Suddenly the Pterodrone Knight crashes in, intercepting the rock and saving her. She stares, stunned, as Jiha appears atop the giant beetle. Jiha ensures Hwayeon is unhurt. She confirms she is safe but warns that Seungho's injuries are severe. He gives her a recovery elixir, instructing immediate use and follow-up treatment at the hospital. He prepares to face the stone mantis shrimp alone, determined to prevent a disaster that could overwhelm the world. He takes comfort in the presence of his loyal companion, the Pterodrone Knight, and a supply of potions. Such individuals who rise to face the overwhelming dangers are called true heroes. Flashback 10 minutes. Jiha had dashed to his store to collect potions and spell-boosting elixirs to assist the hunters safely. A sudden gust had signaled him to look up, and he spotted Knight hovering, signaling that the situation is far more severe than he anticipated. Back in the present, Knight intercepts debris flying from the battlefield while the hunters tend to Seungho. A system notification warns, Stone Mantis Shrimp is enraged, and sees it forming a massive rock sphere. Flying atop the Pterodrone for the first time, Jiha feels the weight of the air and admires the hunters who are accustomed to fighting in such chaos. He pours the elixir he brought into Knight's mouth, enhancing its strength. The monster casts its deadly spell, Fused Silica, hurling the huge rock sphere toward them. Knight channels its awakening skill, Shockwave, which is now enhanced by the elixir into a devastating Void Wave. The attack annihilates the rock sphere, sending shards flying back and striking the Mantis King. The shrimp immediately counters with gravity spell, dimension refraction, shaking the earth violently. As Minseok tends to Sungho with the potion, Hwayeon marvels at the creature's strength but recognizes that it's nearing defeat. Exhausted from its awakening skill, Night can no longer continue, leaving Hwayeon in charge. Jiha organizes the hunters. Some defend against falling rocks while others focus on the stone mantis king. He stresses urgency, warning that any moment, the monster could unleash another spell, feeding a recovery potion to Night. Jiha formulates a strategy, recognizing the 14 smaller mantis shrimps are shaken after witnessing their leader struck. Exploiting their confusion could turn the tide of the battle. So Hwayeon rains down fire while Sunyoung defends against flying debris with her paper barriers. Relief begins to settle when suddenly, a far more terrifying menace emerges. A ruin-grade kraken. What should have been the end of the ordeal is now the beginning of a far greater crisis. Panic grips the shore. This is a threat beyond what they had prepared for. Amid the chaos, Jiha detects a faint vibration beneath the water. Then he sees it. The ocean drains, towards a single point, as if being sucked by an unseen force. A colossal maw emerges from the surface. Jiha realizes it could be the World Eater, attempting to devour the kraken. But he immediately realizes the kraken's suckers could prevent it from being swallowed, and his mind races to find a way to aid the World Eater before things go haywire. The Terradrone Knight, fully recovered, takes charge. Its awakening skill generates a powerful shockwave, pushing the kraken and stone mantis shrimp directly into the gaping jaws of the World Eater. With the threat neutralized, the city breathes a collective sigh of relief. Remaining monsters are eliminated with ease, and the injured are sent to hospitals. Survivors cheer, celebrating their unlikely survival. Later, Hwayeon spots Jiha sweeping debris. She gently teases him, saying he doesn't need to intervene in every situation, and curiously asks about the giant beetle he rode. Jiha can only tell her that it's a friendly, human-helping creature. He inquires about Sungho, learning he has recovered fully, astonishing the doctors with his miraculous potions. Hwayeon expresses her gratitude, and Jiha humbly attributes it to luck. She suggests swimming, but Jiha stops her in fear of her getting trouble so late at night. Their playful banter continues, exchanging compliments and gentle teasing. Yet unknown to them, another divine threat quietly lurks in the shadows, biding its time. The group's vacation comes to a peaceful end as they drive home. The car is quiet, the atmosphere relaxed, everyone asleep except Jiha. He shares a few light-hearted words of gratitude with Sungho, quietly wishing for more vacations like this, and hoping that such peaceful moments continue in the future. When his stop arrives, he climbs out with his pets. Sungho asks him to craft a potion that enhances resistance. Our ambitious alchemist plans to improve his craft, aiming to create a potion with both defensive and healing properties. At that moment, Jiha's sister calls to confirm his safe arrival. Sunyoung explains she discovered something she cannot decipher and seeks his help. He identifies it as a destruction rune word, a spell granting critical damage enhancement for attacks. Excited, she squeals, asking him to recreate it with his red ink and to make an extra one for her. He figures the red ink suits the rune word perfectly. After transferring the rune word onto paper, it becomes a physical damage enhancement scroll, distinct from the mage's focused ones. This new scroll can be used by almost any hunter, promising a significant boost in damage. Yet Jiha knows that as hunters grow stronger, so too will the monsters, escalating the dangers they face. Determined to empower his allies, Jiha enlists the help of his magical companions to craft these scrolls. Before diving into the intensive work, he decides to rest, gathering strength for the task ahead. A few days later in the Dream Forest, the air feels unusually fresh. As he surveys the landscape, he spots two familiar figures in the distance, Sunghyuk and Hyejin, along with South Korea's top hunters. He wonders why they're together as they approach Taoti's supposed seal, only to hear Hyejin point out that true lies further east, beneath a valley cave. Jiha thinks back to the stories of Taoti, blamed for the destruction in Sichuan, China. Despite the legend, its true form, size, and abilities remain unknown, heightening the difficulty of the upcoming battle. The team hurries toward the cave entrance, hoping to investigate the seal before Taoti awakens. Jiha notices the bridge leading to the area is broken and quickly sends Night to repair it. The hunters are astonished to see the bridge restored and briefly wonder if someone else is in the forest, though they quickly push the thought aside and proceed. As they advance, the group remembers that Taoti is one of the four perils in Chinese mythology, a four-legged beast that consumes anything it sets eyes on. Their task is to find its seal, but the absence of visual references makes them unsure where to start. Jiha observes them from above, noticing they walk in a circle oblivious to a mythical aura at the center. The aura forms the shape of a mirror, suggesting it could be linked to Taoti's seal. Seeing that the group hasn't caught on, he decides to reach across the invisible barrier and poke the mirror with his finger. But as soon as he tries, Sunghyuk immediately notices the enormous, otherworldly finger reaching through. Reacting instantly, he channels ether into his sword and intercepts with ether slash. The group scrambles, struggling to comprehend what just occurred. Han insists he saw a giant finger, while others suspect a monster, having seen nothing. Though Jiha nurses his injured finger, shaken. However, at least he succeeded in helping them discover the Taoti's seal mirror. His efforts were successful as they have found Taoti's seal mirror, but the seal is weakening and close to breaking. Han inwardly questions whether they are strong enough to confront Taoti alone, fearing the consequences of failure. a chilling voice suddenly reverberates through the chamber, condemning the hunters wicked and arrogant, accusing them of awakening evil. From the ground emerges the temple's guardian, Seok Gamdang, declaring his intent to punish these sinners. The hunters were completely oblivious to the existence of Guardian protecting the mirror seal, are thrown into panic. Sungyuk quickly asserts control, calming the team. The Guardian, angered by their trespass, vows to annihilate them. He draws his sword and signals for cover, ready to engage. The Guardian casts the Jewel of Karma Flame, sending torrents of fire. Han invokes Blink, teleporting above the Guardians and shattering them with a single precise strike. The Guardians are stunned by his display of strength, giving the hunters the impression they may have weakened with age. When Han touches the mirror, a system message confirms their quest's completion. They have located Tyote's seal. Moreover, Han's actions have dealt significant damage to the Guardians, temporarily halting their movements. Jiha, witnessing Sungyuk's skill, is impressed. His pets, sensing Tyote's awakening, dash off to confront the remaining Guardians, while Jiha prepares scrolls using green herbs from the wild elf village. He hesitates, realizing that retrieving the herbs himself, or using the Terradrones, might alarm the villagers. A solution occurs to him. He could employ Selena, guiding her as an apostle to gather the herbs. Jiha finishes preparing several scrolls, a task made possible only through Selena's help. At his request, she had approached the wild elves to obtain green herbs from their village. Since directly demanding herbs would upset the elves, Jiha advised her to trade instead, offering food and salt, luxuries the elves lacked. She admired his cleverness, especially when he provided her with salt for the exchange. Setting out with Edenskal, she managed to deal with the Radiant Knights on the way, while also securing a plentiful stock of herbs. Thanks to her efforts, Jiha no longer needed to worry about supplies for a while. Just then, a commotion in the garden drew his attention. He found the Terradrones huddled together, surrounded by scattered essence stones. The sight reminded him of Korea's miniature dungeons that began appearing in the Dream Forest. Hunters had been clearing them, yet the rewards proved disappointing. Low and mid-tier dungeons yielded little value, their treasure chests offering barely enough profit to cover costs. Interest among hunters steadily declined when they couldn't even afford to upgrade their stats, but Jiha longed to change the system. For a time he saw no solution, until the Terradrones appeared. These creatures, using claws and horns as tools, were cutting, hammering, and even melting metal in their mouths to craft sturdy wooden treasure chests. To Jiha's surprise, they were also the ones retrieving dungeon loot and packing it inside, which he just found out that day. He wonders whether this has always been their role, or if their behavior shifted because he is chosen by the World Tree. While praising their diligence, he admits the rewards still lack real value. Yet, an idea begins to take shape in his mind, one that might finally solve the problem. A few days later, a hunting party gathers near a dungeon entrance, teasing Deo-kun, the timid shield-bearer of their team. Just before they enter, a sign carved with a shield emblem catches their eye. This is Jiha's very first reform, marking dungeon rewards so hunters of matching specialties know what awaits them. The battle that follows is fierce. Deo-kun hesitates during a key moment, yet manages to contribute enough to help the team succeed, earning both teasing remarks and encouragement. But when another monster suddenly appears, his hesitation returns, forcing a teammate to step in and scold him for his fear. Despite this, he gradually improves by the end of the battle. Once the fight ends, the group consoles the emotional Deo-kun, lifting his spirits. They then rush to check the rewards and are shocked to see not 1, but 5 treasure chests waiting. This is Jiha's second step, multiplying rewards to amplify excitement. They discover the cost to open each box has been cut down to just 2 essences, Jiha's third improvement. The contents confirm the fourth step, unique rewards prepared personally by Jiha. A radiant apple potion, a dazzling shield tailored for Deo-kun, a rune-marked note, and a candle inscribed with strange writing. Their curiosity drives them to Master Cat to have their 3 new mysterious items appraised. The new reward system, offering multiple boxes and unique loot, leaves the party thrilled and eager to hunt more, exactly as Jiha planned. Already expecting their arrival, Master Cat receives them warmly. His evaluation shows Deo-kun's shield is no ordinary gear. It is a unique grade item while the dungeon note is written in rune script. He analyzes Deo-kun and observes an awakening skill called Iron Maiden, which deflects melee attacks with amplified damage, a 200% multiplier per level. Master Cat reveals that the awakening skill can indeed be unlocked, provided certain conditions are met. Yet, he cautions, activating it comes at a cost. All ether will be consumed, leaving the user completely drained. The revelation shocks the hunters, and Deo-kun's emotions stir as he contemplates that this could mean he no longer has to clash with monsters directly. His comrades cheer him on, congratulating him. Their curiosity quickly shifts to themselves, asking whether they too can awaken similar powers. He tells them it's possible. By defeating the giant warhog, there's a chance to acquire such skills. Inspired, Deo-kun vows to face the challenge if it means strengthening his new abilities. They then move on to the remaining items. The candle is revealed to let its user acquire abilities through dreams, while Ark's protection, the shield, carries the god Ark's blessing, granting divine defense. Yet, despite the explanations, some members still fail to grasp the true value of these treasures. In gratitude, Deo-kun insists on forcing Jiha to accept a bag of gold. That same night, Deo-kun lights the candle and drifts into an unusually vivid dream. There, he witnesses a mighty knight fending off endless waves of undead. His strength lies not just in his blade, but in his refusal to retreat, to protect his people, which moves Deo-kun. Suddenly the knight's eyes meet his and holy radiance surges into him. He awakens in shock, drenched in sweat, only to discover he has gained a new trait, Holy Knight's Devotion Level 1. Deo-kun sits in awe after awakening the skill Holy Knight's Devotion Level 1. Yet, his excitement quickly dims. The ability seems more suited to a knight, while his role has always been that of a tank. Though disappointed, he resolves to figure out how to adapt the skill and put it to use in his next dungeon expedition. Meanwhile, word of the discovery spreads like wildfire. Broadcasts announce the emergence of a new category of powers, awakening skills, unique to each hunter in both ability and method of acquisition. South Korea becomes the focus of global attention as the Hunter Association and countless hunters gather to witness the world's very first hunter unlock its ultimate. Determined to push further, Deo-kun prepares himself to face the giant warhog, the beast he needs to defeat in order to fully unlock his awakening. Shield raised, he stands firm while his companions cheer from the sidelines. The warhog charges, slamming into his guard with immense force. Straining to hold his ground, he realizes the moment of awakening is near. He activates Iron Maiden. Power surges from his shield in the form of an explosion, engulfing the beast and sending shockwaves across the battlefield. As the dust clears, a radiant figure appears before him, placing something into the ground. Stunned, he wonders if this could be none other than God Ark himself. In that instant, everything about his past, his larger build, his reluctance to strike down monsters, his instinct to protect rather than destroy, suddenly makes sense. These traits are not weaknesses but signs of his destiny. Hearing Ark's call, he understands his true role, to protect his people without faltering and walk the path of the god. His teams, stunned, tries to make sense if what they just witnessed was the awakening of his skill. Concerned, they ask if he is hurt. He reassures them with a calm smile, saying he has discovered something even greater than an awakening skill. He has found his purpose. Days later, news of his awakening floods the Korean hunter community. Posts about his new skills spread across forums and social platforms. Yu Jiha spends his days focused on hunter development, working on a structure that proves unusually difficult to complete. The task stems from his recent discovery, a book penned by God Ark that reveals hidden knowledge of dungeon design. It describes ways to grant hunters buffs, protection, and other enhancements during raids. With its help, Jiha experiments with prototypes, and the one he now carries is ready for testing. He heads into a dungeon to set it in place. At that very moment, a group of hunters prepares to enter a dungeon to face the green serpent and the lurking monkfish. The serpent they can handle, but the monkfish is trouble since they attack from below while enemies press on the ground. Hyejin advises the team to rely on its distinctive sound to evade attacks, though only she and Seung-hyuk have the senses sharp enough for it. Suddenly Han spots something strange, a statue of a praying saintess. To their shock, it grants a powerful buff, but Han freezes when he recognizes the face Selena, a figure he knows from Gehenna. He cannot help but wonder if the true source of these miracles will ever be revealed. The statues prove indispensable throughout the raid. They heal poison at critical moments, restore stamina when exhaustion sets in, and provide blessings that keep the team alive through the dungeon's harshest trials. That night, at Seung-hyuk and Hyejin's home, a special candle is lit. As Seung-hyuk drifts into dreams, he is delighted to see Eddie and Selena. There, his attention is seized by a golden knight, radiating with divine energy. Seung-hyuk raises his sword, eager to clash and gain its abilities. But before he can act, the knight's blade descends on him with unstoppable force. Their blades meet with a violent crash, as the knight leans close, asking Han to adjust his stance. He forces the enemy back, demanding to know if this knight knows him, but the figure gives no answer. The sheer force in his opponent's hands makes his own arms quiver. Channeling power into his sword, Han steadies himself for a counter. Then the knight speaks again, stating humans are too fragile to withstand the trials to come. Han demands clarity, but it just repeats the grim judgment. Then it dawns on him that the words might be about the Taioti. The armored figure declares that something far worse is in store for them, a calamity that will erase humankind. Seung-hyuk refuses to accept such prophecy, and instead demands to know his opponent's identity. In answer, the figure announces himself as the commander of the Gungnir Legion, the eternal sword in service to Lord Ark. Golden blades shimmer into existence, circling him in orbit as the knight proclaims himself the swordmaster of the Legion. Han insists again, asking why this knight speaks as if he knows him. The swordmaster admits he has observed him closely due to his unique potential. Seung-hyuk activates his skill, Form Etherization, pressing further on why the knight has chosen to appear only now. The knight reveals, because the Apostle of Ark has risen. When Han tries to demand more, the swordmaster shuts him down. Meanwhile, Selena receives an inscription, wondering if it is connected to the same mysterious entity as before. Then the challenge begins. The swordmaster tells Han to fight with everything or die before enlightenment. At his command, the daggers rain down on him. Han steels himself to seize both the skill and the knowledge of the knight. He channels everything into his sword. With a single sweeping strike, he destroys the incoming daggers. Yet in a heartbeat, the knight reappears behind him, praising the attempt before conjuring a new skill. First sword technique, Stormblade. Its first form spins Han across the hall. Before he can recover, a whirlwind strike follows, detonating into a torrent of energy. The scene shifts to Jiha completes brewing a red potion, pouring it carefully into a flask. He exhales in quiet satisfaction as Master Alchemist Chulhyun applauds from nearby, astonished by the precision of his work. Chulhyun inspects the potion and is stunned. It restores 200 health in only 10 seconds, whereas the previous batch required 15. More surprising is Jiha's flawless timing, achieved without tools. That natural precision makes it clear why Huayan respects him so deeply. Once Chulhyun leaves, Jiha reflects that reaching alchemy level 4 has raised both the quality and ease of his work. Deciding to rest, he drifts into the dream forest where he enjoys the fresh air and searches for his pets, Biam, Doggo, and Panny. His peace shatters when the humming bell tolls, warning of an earthquake near the Taudi's seal. An alert confirms the seal is on the verge of breaking, urging him to deploy terradrones. He rushes to the site and finds them already encircling the seal, forming barriers instead of engaging directly. The choice puzzles him, though he suspects a deeper logic. Still, he fears these defenses may not withstand the Taudi's might. At that moment, the nightmare begins. Black lions classified as disaster grade emerge, minions of the Taudi. The terradrones swarm forward in unison to fight it. Time seemed to pass like quicksand as he carefully observed and recorded their combat tactics against the monster. By fall, a massive portal tears open in Seoul's District 7, drawing crowds of startled onlookers. A hunter party investigates, only to recoil when their analysis reveals the truth. This is a category level 6 dungeon. They retreat immediately, rushing to deliver the news to the association. The dungeon demands a clear outcome: seal or slay Taioti in 47 hours, 57 minutes. Though marked as plain, the level 6 classifies it as a destruction class threat. Eternal Flames Elite, the single numbers, ranked from 1 to 9, assemble at the gate. Han Sung-hyuk, once convinced this was a simple hunter association call, now suspects someone is deliberately orchestrating District 7's downfall. Huayan dismisses his grim humor, but voices her thoughts about how different he looks ever since he returned. Han thinks the same. Every member of the clan feels different too. The core team has completed their awakening, thanks to Jiha's guidance. Before entering, Hyejin recalls Jiha's potions and distributes them. These aren't ordinary elixirs. Each restores half health, stamina, and ether in an instant, boosts all stats by 23% for 2 hours, and grants 7 seconds of invulnerability. Fully buffed, the hunters step into the gate, rallying together. From his dream forest, Jiha monitors the miniature battlefield, knowing that while terradrones can hold against black lions, but none can face Taioti itself. The fate of the world rests on the awakened hunters. Nearing the seal, Han spots familiar Saintess statues and orders everyone to receive their buffs before advancing. One of the hunter downs one of Jiha's potions, shocked as his stats nearly double. Yet Sung-hyuk grimly warns that even this may not be enough, but Huayan insists they stay optimistic. Black lions soon emerge. Han takes the first hit, using himself as bait so his team can strike back. Hyejin unleashes a ferocious sword rampage, while Huayan follows with Phoenix Shot and Lava Inferno, drowning the field in fire. Their tank holds the line, countering with such force that the beast is stunned and driven back. All this gives enough time for Sung-hyuk to steady himself and unchains his newly learned skill from the Dream Knight, the Storm Blade technique. Its first form, Whirlwind Strike, explodes, carving the Black Lion down instantly, leaving the team in awe. However, the sense of triumph is short-lived as a Blood Lion rises stronger, faster, and 1 rank higher than the Black Lion. Han orders everyone to reapply buffs and drink potions. The beast lunges, its claws aim to tear him apart, but Han counters it with his ether blade. Hyejin cries out in fear, dreading he'll vanish again if he overexerts. Her teammate pulls her back to focus, reminding her that only Sung-hyuk has the power to withstand the monster. She snaps out of her emotions, asking her team to gather intel on the beast. At first their search comes up empty, but then someone checks Mir Wiki and finds fresh details posted just moments ago. Meanwhile, Sung-hyuk struggles. Maintaining Etherblade after unleashing Stormblade drains his ether dangerously fast. Just as his stance falters, their tank unleashes AoE Taunt, pulling the beast's attention and exposing its stomach mid-charge. The opening is all the team needs. The mage unleashes a poisonous spell striking the Blood Lion's vulnerable spot. The Blood Lion reels back, staggering from the hit. Hyejin rushes forward with Sword Rampage, carving into its flesh with rapid strikes. She calls out for Sung-hyuk to finish it, and he summons Growler in his massive form. With one strike of his claw, the Blood Lion is flattened. Growler towers over the hunters, its single strike against the Blood Lion, leaving them shaken. Huayan and Hyejin prepare to strike, but the beast roars to stop them, declaring itself no enemy. Sung-hyuk raises his hand, recognizing the beast. When questioned, he explains this is no monster, but a nature god bound to him by contract. When asked why it came, Growler warns Taioti's awakening has summoned its Dharma protector. Unlike ordinary monsters, a protector is a guardian whose strength cannot be measured. To counter this, Growler shares his divine ether with Sung-hyuk. The beast offers his paw to touch, bestowing his power upon him, leaving him shaken. The wolf vanishes, entrusting him with the strength to eliminate the guardian before it reaches Taioti. He asks for his guidance for Taioti, but the wolf says that he will take care of it. With that, Growler vanishes, entrusting him with the fight. The team speculates on the protector's might. convinced only Sungyuk can face it. Yet Sungyuk knows the fight ahead demands the effort of each of them. Meanwhile, the Teotihi servants deliver word of the hunters' advance, urging their master to rise while they deal with those insects. Teotihi is busy feasting when three familiar figures arrive: Biam, Growler, and Pani. The demigods taunt him, but he remains unshaken, boasting that even united, they cannot hinder him. Teotihi believes he can end them instantly for another decade of peace. Pani fakes a pounce, drawing Teotihi's eye, while Biam and Growler lunge in for the real attack. Driven by madness, Teotihi snarls that no trick will fool him and swears to annihilate everyone. Pani charges with its horn aimed at him, while Growler and Biam tear into his flesh, bent on dragging his soul back to where it came from. His core leaks energy until Teotihi suddenly snaps, roaring and flinging the three aside. Pani spots the dimensional wall tearing open, the crack widening into a large hole that begins sucking Biam toward it. The battle resumes instantly. Biam and Growler pin Teotihi down while Pani drives her horn deep, landing a decisive blow. Teotihi staggers, stunned at their resilience, then screams for his father, but before an answer comes, all four disappear without a trace. Jiha watches the scene in horror as they disappear. He searches everywhere but no trace remains where they vanished, not even signs of battle. Panic spreads through Jiha as the humming bell tolls. Fearing the worst, he rushes to the miniature world. There he sees the Sungyuk's team facing the Grand Dharma, Teotihi's guardian, a two-headed dragon known as one of the most formidable opponents. Flames pour from its mouths, setting the ground on fire. Sungyuk orders gangmen to shield him. The tank gulps an enhancing potion and braces, holding back the torrent. Straining under the pressure, he begs Han to act quickly. Sungyuk blinks forward, activating his newly learnt Stormblade's first form sword technique. A storm of energy tears through the air, but the beast retaliates with its fire blast that sends him crashing down. The Guardian, impressed by his attack, recognizes the sword style and demands to know his link to the knight whose style he wields. Han connects it to Legion Swordmaster but dismisses its interest, threatening to reduce the beast to ashes. The Guardian, enraged, fires an annihilation blast but Han blinks away just in time. Han charges the monster, unleashing his Stormblade's whirlwind strike, but the attack barely grazes it. The beast stomps down, shaking the ground with a quake. Han leaps to escape the shockwave but is caught midair and slammed into a wall. Jiha tenses as he sees Han cough blood on impact. In that instant, Han's mind flashes back to the time he first learned Whirlwind Strike and begged the knight to teach him the third technique. The knight refused, warning that Han could barely handle the second. With each level, the ether cost climbed higher, and forcing it risked ether deficiency severe enough to kill him. Yet now, survival of the world outweighs his own life. The Guardian watches in horror as aura surges through him, summoning the feral beast Growler, who throws the monster into a frenzy of shock and fear. The knight's warning haunts him. He can survive one hit, if luck favors him. Deciding to gamble everything, he activates the second form of Stormblade as his loyal wolf keeps the enemy occupied. Blinking forward, he carves a spiral slash through the beast, leaving it torn apart. Only then does exhaustion crush him, and he slumps to the ground. Jiha celebrates the Protector's fall with his Terradrones, hardly believing his eyes. He quickly commands the beetles to aid in rebuilding the seal and tend to the injured hunters. But then a worry strikes him. He hasn't seen his pets in far too long. Fearing the worst, he asks the knight to search for them. At last, growls echo from the mist. Jiha weeps with relief as his companions return unharmed. Afterwards, they curl around him. He swears to be the safe haven they always return to, for only they can face horrors like Teotihi. After the clash with Teotihi, Biam, Pani, and Growler lie battered and resistant to treatment. Jiha forces medicine down their throats as they vanish at every mention of it. Out of desperation, he threatens to withhold food. Only then do they obediently accept care, a cruel tactic he justifies as necessary for their recovery. Meanwhile, the world shifts from celebrating Teotihi's defeat to questioning who had accomplished it. Reports surface of a Chinese helicopter spotting three enormous, unidentified silhouettes besides Teotihi. They stirred fear among the civilians until the figures were identified as nature gods. The revelation that one of them is contracted with a Korean hunter sparked international concern. Thus, Korea convenes a secret conference. Korea. Hyunsuk explains that Teotihi and the nature gods started their battle at Gehenna, and a massive energy surge displaced it into China. The seal lies near Sichuan in China, yet the dungeon opened in Korea, an anomaly many dismiss as coincidence. He shows visuals of the battlefield on the screen. President Kim Jae-sung of Korea asks whether the visible damage is evidence of the combat, and it is confirmed. Dramatic changes, including a mountain range destroyed by a single breath, attest to the scale of the clash. Teotihi's power was immense enough that China sent a UAV intended for a nuclear strike, only for it to be shot down along with all other drones, leaving no footage. Officials question whether the monster is truly dead. There should be an ether stone or essence left behind, but whether destruction-grade creatures drop them is unknown. With the threat seemingly over, the president lifts the evacuation order and turns to Ashley, the U.S. Psyker Association liaison. She admits that even the U.S. has no data on Category 6 dungeons and requests that Korea share whatever intelligence they possess. One fact stands out. Every single numbered hunter reports seeing a massive wolf among the silhouettes, later verified as Sungyuk's contracted nature god. This entity had ordered hunters to stop the Guardian while it faced Teotihi itself. Ashley openly remarked that America believed no nation could defeat a destruction-class monster without military force. The president countered by calling Hyunsuk forward, demanding the truth of how Korean hunters accomplished what the world deemed impossible. Hyunsuk acknowledges that the battle's success hinged entirely on Jiha, the alchemist, who had strengthened the single-numbered hunters with awakening skills, elixirs, and specialized scrolls. He emphasizes that without him, the battle would have been lost, prompting an elder statesman to demand that this invaluable man be protected at all costs. They realize they cannot force Jiha to relocate, leaving him vulnerable to anyone with ill intent. The president assures the committee he will devise a solution, and Hyunsuk infers that the Korean government will fully commit its resources to safeguard the alchemist. He then shifts focus to preparations for future destruction-grade threats, while Ashley's thoughts remain fixed on Jiha out of curiosity. Meanwhile, the ether stone the government speculated about is in Jiha's hands. He asks Bayam if it's from Taudi. The cat meows yes, gesturing toward the world tree, as if to suggest it should be offered there. As he approaches, a branch reaches out to absorb the stone. Leaves shimmer and a radiant glow spreads across the tree's branches, mesmerizing Jiha and his companions. Drawn by the spectacle, he notices a fluffy sheep approaching, opening a golden portal. Wondering if this is yet another nature god, he follows through the swirling light. On the other side, he finds himself in a vast library with towering shelves and countless books. The sheep pauses by a book on the floor, seemingly reading it, and he names it Youngie, thinking it must be the librarian. The gardener follows Youngie around, discovering that the books require essence to read. He speculates that the book he previously found on dungeon structures likely originated from this library. Movement above catches his attention, and he sees pterodrones inside the grand library. At first he wonders how his helpers got here, but noticing their green shells and smaller size, he realizes they belong to the world tree. He observes the pterodrones diligently writing in books. When he asks what they are recording, Youngie brings him a book to read. Its attention to detail impresses him. Upon inspecting further, he realizes the library is constantly updated by the pterodrones with the world's ongoing history. Curious about specific knowledge, he asks Youngie for books on the Gaymark Empire. The sheep produces 2 hefty tomes, which he decides to borrow, intent on experimenting with something new. Ever since the world tree absorbed Tyote's energy from the essence stone, both the tree and the surrounding garden expand significantly. As Jiha explores, he discovers a waterfall previously hidden by fog and notices bees buzzing around a massive hive. He observes a pterodrone pulling a lever inside the hive as a drop of honey falls and is quickly caught by another. He scolds them for stealing honey but realizes the bees do not react, as if there is an unspoken agreement between the creatures. A system notification reveals a new material, Emperor Honey, which permanently boosts maximum health by 10%, but is usable only once and is also the pterodrone's favorite food. Jiha pockets a small portion, thinking of using it as rare dungeon loot rather than selling it. Following Tyote's defeat, Jiha has devoted himself fully to developing the sanctuary. He enriches the soil with worms and creates a lake, attracting new species and revitalizing the terrain. Maintaining the sanctuary consumes significant essences, but the active dungeon ensures a steady flow of resources. Then came the Great Salt Crisis. He assumed only wild elves had a problem, but apparently Estrom citizens clearly think life without salt is just bland. Communicating with Prince Edenskal as an apostle, Jiha learns they collect salt from rocks, or by solidifying animal blood. Estrom's lack of proper salt mines forced it to yield to the Gaymark Empire, as salt was a crucial strategic resource. Determined to fix the salt shortage, he digs through the World Tree Library and finds a vague reference to a salt mine. He enlists the pterodrone's help to decode it. After a moment, it takes off, leading him to a large herd of cattle. He is astonished to see the cattle. They were supposed to have fled after the Great War. He decides to lead them to the Estrom Kingdom. Looking to his pets for assistance, he sees Doggo and Biom fighting over the task. He assigns Doggo to lead while enjoying popcorn like a spectator. He cheers the wolf on as it sets off, accompanied by the other pets. Jiha watches with excitement, confident they will reach the kingdom safely. He also discovers an abandoned granary full of wheat, which he harvests with pterodrones in just 2 hours instead of the estimated 7. Afterwards, Jiha sends a message to Selena, informing her that the pterodrones are delivering wheat, a herd of cattle, and some salt. These rare resources will benefit not only the people of Estrom but also Jiha himself. The villagers, receiving the salt, wheat, and cattle, believe these blessings come from Ark, and gratefully place a feast on the altar. Jiha exchanges their offerings for 2 golden potions capable of healing severe wounds. For a time, he records praise for Selena and the villagers' sincerity in the Infinite Spellbook. Meanwhile, Deokun strengthens his spiritual beliefs, offering prayers to the divine Ark. However, the scripture he discovered is rich in tradition and myth, but lacks practical guidance, and he feels the need for a mentor. Realizing no one on Earth can guide him, his thoughts drift to the records of Ark's followers in Gehenna, though he knows they were lost during the Gaymark Empire's persecution. Seeking guidance through meditation, he receives a subtle signal to forge his own spiritual path. The scene shifts to him intercepting a charging beast with his Iron Maiden skill on a dungeon raid with his team. Clearing dungeons has become noticeably easier since he began his spiritual journey. Suddenly, a Terra drone flies above and passes through an invisible barrier. Curious, the hunters follow it and arrive at a stone gateway. They realize they have stumbled upon a civilization when they see people nearby. They notice Terra drones plowing fields and approach for a closer look. A sudden shout erupts, and armed villagers rush forward to defend themselves, mistaking the group for intruders. The villagers quickly form a defensive line behind a large Terra drone, sending messengers to alert Prince Edenskal and Saintess Selena. The hunters try to explain they mean no harm, while Deokun speculates that the villagers, possibly survivors from a fallen kingdom, may not share the same perspective. As Selena appears, Deokun's group immediately recognizes her from the statues in the dungeons. Prince Edenskal arrives shortly after, and the group is struck by his presence, realizing Selena might be his princess. The prince greets the hunters, asking if they are connected to Han. Deokun recognizes Han Sung-yuk as the hunter in question. The prince confirms this, explaining Han stayed with them for a few years before returning home. He recalls their names from Han's report, Selena and Edenskal, and nervously addresses them. The prince is intrigued that Deokun knows their names, but Selena suggests a possible mutual connection and inquires if they are the hunters from another world. Realizing Han likely shared the villagers' information, Edenskal hopes he didn't reveal too much. Deokun kneels, turning to Selena for guidance, convinced she might be the Arch-Saintess, and shares his struggle to strengthen his faith. He admits that while many religions exist in his world, he seeks the kind of guidance Selena provides. She senses his sincerity, welcomes him and gives him a necklace to mark his initiation. With Deokun's faith established, the villagers, reassured by the prince and Saintess, converse openly with the newcomers. Stories are exchanged about Han Sung-hyuk's arrival and the village's remarkable recovery. As the dungeon nears closure, the hunters prepare to depart. Deokun resolves to report the events to Sung-hyuk, and their report quickly becomes a topic of interest after their return. Back in the modern world, Deokun visits Jiha's shop, bringing the pendant and sacred text given by Selena and recounting the events. Jiha explains that such gifts from high-ranking religious figures signify appointment as an apostle, a role to spread faith among the people. Inspired, Deokun readies himself to embrace the responsibilities entrusted to him by the Saintess. A while later, Jiha steps into the dream forest and is startled to see the Terradrone Queen lying exhausted on the grass. He approaches to check if she is alright. The queen unexpectedly spits out an object, which the system identifies as a terraseed. The system identifies it as a fertilizer that enriches soil and accelerates crop growth, though the delivery method utterly bizarre. A twig lands near his foot, leading his gaze to pictorial instructions carved on the ground by Night. Carefully deciphering them, she realizes that combining honey with an elixir can produce a special jelly that greatly enhances ether absorption. After creating the potion, the knight brings him a pot of soil, gesturing for him to plant the terra seed and ether stones, then pours emperor jelly on top so the seed can absorb. Within moments, a healthy green sprout emerges. Amazed by the rapid growth, Jiha decides to collect more seeds. After some time, when the Eternal Flame Guild clears a dungeon, they find a surprisingly small chest. Initially skeptical due to its size, they notice it costs 10 essence and suspect it contains something valuable. Opening it, they find a small seed that significantly enhances crop growth, unlike anything seen on Earth. Though wary of planting it in case it attracts monsters, Sung-ho assures them the chest only drops items beneficial to hunters. His confidence proves correct. Within days, the government and the Goryeo group begin funding the purchase of the dungeon seeds for their incredible crop-boosting power. Hwayeon watches the broadcast at Jiha's place over a meal and asks for his insight. He explains that stockpiling and using the seeds could revolutionize farming, though inwardly he smirks. He placed in the dungeon for this very reason. Hwayeon mentions her guild's recent trip to Japan where the Japanese Ministry of Defense tried to buy her guild's loyalty with flashy incentives. Jiha, clueless about life outside Korea, asks how things are in Japan. She explains that survival is their top priority since earthquakes, monsters, and volcanoes leave little room for comfort. Curious, he asks about her response to their offer. She leans over to wipe a smear of sauce from his cheek, teasing that she clearly made her choice since she's here with him. Jiha tries to ease the awkwardness by calling his pets over. Biom, Panny, and Doggo rush in like a stampede, chomping away, while he perks up at a strange noise outside. Hwayeon notices his sudden pause, but since she hears nothing, he chooses not to alarm her, and instead plans to investigate later. While the three pets gossip among themselves about the noise, he offers Hwayeon more food, and she politely agrees, only for the smell of burning to fill the air. After the comedic mishap, he heads to the forest to investigate the noise, suspecting a new nature god. At the World Tree, he spots a bright red parrot perched on a branch. Suddenly, Biom dashes past him, agitated by the parrot, making Jiha wonder if the two creatures know each other. The cat lunges in fury, failing to climb. Doggo only growls in frustration at both of them. Jiha concludes it must be a nature god if Biom reacts this way, and names it Hong after its distinctive cry. Hong excitedly perches on his shoulder, and he welcomes it home. He immediately tests Hong's abilities and learns it excels at separating, collecting, and storing seeds. Like Youngie the librarian, Hong can open a gate, this one a vast storage vault for seeds. He digs deeper online and discovers that these vaults serve as seed repositories, designed to preserve food sources in the wake of global catastrophes. His research reveals that Korea's seed vault perished in the Great War, while the world's last safeguard, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, is on the verge of permanent shutdown. To preserve them, he considers relocating the seeds into Hong's storage. However, the vault's remoteness near the North Pole makes the trip impractical. As he ponders, his pets gather, trying to help. Suddenly, Hong tugs his hair and to his shock speaks in human words, offering to take him there. Though stunned, he follows, only to watch in awe as the bird swells into a massive form and gestures for him to climb on. When Jiha asks about the destination, Hong reveals it intends to fly straight to Svalbard, leaving him astonished at how it even knows of the place. He voices his doubt about the distant journey, but Hong reassures him. Reluctantly, he climbs onto the bird's back, clutching its feathers as if his life depends on it. His nervous cries are quickly lost to the wind as they soar toward the Arctic. His fear slowly melts into awe and the warmth radiating from Hong soothes him, making him wonder if the bird is a phoenix. As Svalbard comes into view, Jiha drinks a cold resistance potion to brace for the frigid weather conditions. Upon landing, he discovers his Terradrone knight and its companions already waiting, prepared for the work ahead. As they draw closer, Jiha spots movement in the shadows, werewolves slipping out of the dark. He didn't expect monsters here, so he quickly divides his forces. The High Knight leads some Terradrones outside to battle while Jiha brings the rest inside to collect seeds. The vault's interior is eerie, sealed for years, making him worry the seeds may have decayed. As they advance, a werewolf sneaks up from behind. The sudden noise startles them, but one Terradrone lunges first, killing it with a single strike. Assuming the seeds must be ruined if monsters had already broken in, Jiha braces for disappointment, only to find them perfectly preserved. The group begins carefully moving boxes of seeds. Hong keeps the gate open as the Terradrones haul box after box of seeds inside. It is a grueling task with nearly 4 million crates to move. He then steps outside with Hong, finding everything is buried in snow. He asks if the bird sees anything but the phoenix squawks that humanity has run out of time. Jiha freezes, realizing his biggest problem isn't monsters, it's explaining this bird to people, if it gets discovered. A thud breaks his thoughts as the Terradrones drop the lifeless werewolves at his feet, proving that the battle is over. Jiha praises their work, and with the task complete, they prepare to return. He instructs the Terradrones to deliver seeds to Estrom village and to Hyunseok. Soon, villagers plant and harvest them, while Hyunseok files detailed reports on it. The Goryeo group industrializes the process, unveiling soil-free smart farms powered by these seeds. A few days later, Jiha's sister visits his shop. They discuss HunterNet, the outdated trade market for hunters. She criticizes its lack of visibility and conservative name, while Jiha suggests renaming it into an exchange center. Soon-young points out that with a proper system, the market could thrive, but she leaves in a rush, promising to return soon for Byam. Left alone, Jiha turns to a book titled System by Arc, borrowed from Youngi's library, hoping to find a solution for the exchange center. The text explains the hunter system in depth: stars, traits, skills, dungeon structures, and even the HunterNet. The ancient language would have made it impossible to understand. His system design trait now lets him read it with ease. Gathering insight from the book, he devises a plan to upgrade the market into an auction platform. Through Mere Wiki, using Essence as currency and Terradrones for delivery, he plans to launch with potions and scrolls, before moving on to rarer artifacts once he collects them. When he discusses it with the Terradrone Knight, it agrees but warns they'll burn out balancing both artifacts and chests. Jiha wonders about a solution, and the Knight gestures toward a worker tirelessly smelting a weapon. Its dedication fills him with awe. Then Knight draw a bottle of honey in the ground, implying they will work even more persistently if they get honey. They strike a deal. The Terradrones keep all the honey in return for collecting artifacts. The arrangement pays off. Every visit to the garden rewards Jiha with new finds, some remarkably rare. Among them is the Shotel of the Crescent Moon, a weapon that boosts strength by 5, agility by 10, and grants traits like swordsmanship, lockpicking, and even a shroud skill. Despite their small size, the Terradrones excel at their craft. While Jiha examines the rare artifact in awe, his pets trot up with an unexpected guest, a small bear wobbling after them, tumbling with each step. The sheer cuteness nearly knocks Jiha flat. He scoops it up like a toddler, debating names, Winnie or Cuddly, before settling on Winnie. But when he asks about its food, the bear smacks him across the face and goes on a rampage, terrorizing everyone. It claws at Byam, charges at Panny, and only stops when it takes a kick to the stomach. Far from harmless, Winnie clearly enjoys irritating everyone. Jiha gathers the battered cub into his arms and tries calming it with a forest tour. He shows Winnie the fields, promising all the food it wants, so long as it spares the garden. Winnie pays no attention, its eyes fix on a beehive, enchanted by the smell. Worried the bear would intimidate the bees next, he warns that honey can only be taken through him. Handing Winnie a bottle of honey, Jiha is stunned when the bear opens a gate leading to a hidden stockpile of weapons and armor. Though he assumed Winnie was a combat type, the discovery proves otherwise. The gear is extraordinary, each piece loaded with bonus stats perfect for his auction. Among them, Jiha's eyes catch the Demon Breaker, a heroic rarity sword that boosts strength, agility, and intelligence while offering traits like swordsmanship, sprint, curse resistance, eternal bound, and the skills Etherblade and haste. He asks Winnie if he can take it, noting that only Han Seung-yuk wields an Etherblade at present, meaning this weapon would cause a frenzy on the market. Winnie requests 10 essences in rent, surprisingly modest. He suspects it's because Winnie assumes he won't keep it for himself. Conveniently, 10 essences is exactly what he intended to charge as a broker. The next day, Jiha lists the Etherblade on Mirror-Wiki, and chaos erupts. Bids climb higher and higher until one final number silences the rest, 10,000 essences. At home, Seung-yuk and Hyejin scroll through the storm of posts. Hyejin mutters that the price is madness, but he insists it's worth every essence. An Etherblade doesn't even require skill to wield, which is exactly why he had already bought it. He plans to take his new sword to the appraiser, only for Hyejin to casually reveal that Jiha himself is the appraiser. Completely thrilled, they rush to meet him. Some days later, Han tests the sword in a dungeon, slicing a stone golem in half with one effortless strike. Hyunsuk watches in disbelief, realizing this must be the Demon Breaker. Seung-yuk tells him that the sword has far exceeded his expectations. Its haste skill allows him to move smoothly. Hyunsuk is stunned. He never saw that info in the auction listing. Seung-yuk casually mentions he had it appraised by Jiha, shocking the man further since the appraiser was supposedly on a break. Han shrugs it off as luck, though in truth he had bribed him with gifts in the middle of the night, silently vowing to repay him with something even better. After some time, Jiha experiments by planting a world tree sapling on Earth, curious to see if it can take root, then returns to the forest. The place feels emptier. Most Terra drones are out delivering auctioned artifacts, while the few remaining work tirelessly on crafting and packing. He asks Knight if the beehive can be moved to Estrom village to expand production. At the thought of losing honey, the poor Terra drone bursts into tears. Jiha reassures it, promising not to deprive them, but to increase honey output, guaranteeing a steady supply. Carefully, he retrieves the hive, intending to transplant it to Estrom village, where conditions are more favorable for its growth. He calls out to Selena within the miniature world. She immediately responds to his call. He greets both Selena and Edenskal, offering them the beehive, on the condition that they cultivate it and send him the honey in return for an equal amount of sugar. When he shows them a sample, the two light up like kids in a candy store since sugar is considered a luxury in Estrom village. Tasting the sugar, Eddie asks the apostle how he managed to get it. Selena remarks that such things are hardly surprising for the gardener of the world tree. Jiha had thought honey held greater value, yet Edenskal pointed out that sugar was far rarer in Estrom, as it comes only from a limited supply of sugar beets. The deal was accepted without hesitation. At the U.S. Government Complex Management Office, Hyunsuk and Seung-yuk arrive for a high-level conference. On the way in, Hyunsuk remarks that other nations envy the privileges Korean hunters enjoy. Still, he says, to gain something better, they must be ready to give something up. That, after all, is why they've come to this meeting, to negotiate. Seung-yuk admits his guild pushed him to attend, though he personally doesn't care for politics, and is happy just being a hunter. Hyunsuk urges him to think beyond hunting, and reminds him that Jiha and the Neko appraiser, two names that are, in truth, the same person, will surely be brought up in the meeting. Han is curious to see what kind of proposal Jiha will receive, but Hyunsuk points out that Jiha doesn't care much for wealth, making him a tough person to sway. They enter the room and find Ashley leading the session. Seung-yuk lightly tests her loyalties, but she firmly replies that, despite representing the US, she won't take sides. Her only goal is fairness. Seung-yuk seems satisfied, while Hyunsuk cringes at the awkward exchange. Seung-yuk brushes it off, saying he only wanted to make sure Korean hunters wouldn't face bias. Ashley opens the meeting by setting ground rules, urging everyone to be respectful and concise, though Hyunsuk doubts they'll listen. He's proven right when a man slams his desk, demanding confirmation about Korea's events, and whether Jiha and the appraiser are real. Chaos follows as others talk over him, some questioning if the dungeons are altered, others accusing Korean hunters of gaining unfair advantages. Hyunsuk finally confirms that everything is true, silencing the room. He states that Korea has no reason to lie, the truth is already out. When officials demand to know why Korea kept quiet, he fires back, pointing out that every country hides things, like the US, concealing the mini ether reactor. Someone tries to argue that ether industry products and hunter-related information aren't the same, but Hyunsuk firmly disagrees, saying both are tools for national advancement. He brings up the giant dungeon China hid until Korean hunters cleared it, emphasizing that information holds value only when kept scarce. Seung-yuk finally snaps, addressing the room with sharp frustration. He gets straight to the point, aware that others want a quota system and access for foreign hunters to Korean dungeon raids. He firmly reminds them that they aren't there to be interrogated, and makes it clear they expect something in return. They got what they came for, the prototype ether reactor and 10 developers. After the meeting, Hyunsuk praises Seung-yuk's negotiation skills. Seung-yuk believes that sidelining Korean hunters is no different from sidelining Korea itself, something he won't tolerate. Besides, foreign hunter invitations were already a monthly demand. Hyunsuk, however, feels guilty Jiha gained nothing from the settlement. Seung-yuk muses he would have refused anyway. Hyunsuk brainstorms ways to thank him, and Sungyuk proposes a treat box for Baeom, but the suggestion gets immediately rejected. He suggests setting up a container by Jiha's shop with alchemy equipment, charging a fee for every 2 hunters who use it. Part of the income goes to a hunter academy or orphanage, the rest to Jiha. Han, impressed by the idea, remarks that rich always find ways to profit. After a few peaceful days in Estrom village, Margreta, the vice-captain of the Black Lion Knighthood from the Gaymark Empire, arrives at the gates. She pauses, taking in the transformed village, astonished that it has overcome food shortages far worse than those of Gaymark. Prince Edenskal and Selena greet her at the entrance and immediately ask the reason for her visit. Margreta explains she's come to inquire about Baron Grom and Perojak, as all contact with them has been lost. She's taken aback to hear they've already left the village with other troops. Surveying the surroundings, Margreta asks if they were the ones who left the cattle behind. Edenskal explains the cattle arrived after their departure. Farming only began once the previous troops left, due to differences and their failure to meet expectations. Still skeptical, Margreta doubts they would leave voluntarily, but Edenskal conceals the truth of their exile. Seeking a distraction, he whistles, and the Terradrone Knight descends from above. Margreta is left stunned by the towering creature. Edenskal casually asks for her opinion on Arc-sent soldiers capable of defeating ogres alone, and points to the smaller beetles tending the fields. She scoffs, reminding him that he once claimed no belief in any religion, and questions if he had lied. He apologizes for the misunderstanding, explaining that the village has recently made a contract with Arc and hopes she won't act rashly. She takes it as a threat, accusing him of planning a feud, but Edenskal calmly asks if they intend to give him a reason. He proposes a clean split, both empires leaving each other alone. When asked if they no longer require Gaymark's support, Edenskal declares they are under Ark's protection, making cooperation with non-believers difficult. Margreta then turns to Selena, assuming even the princess stands against Gaymark. Selena calmly replies that they're not against anyone, so long as they accept Arc. Margreta refuses to believe in unseen powers. Selena points that the beetles are a sign, but the vice-captain dismisses them as merely well-trained monsters, not proof of Arc. Selena responds that while it's not proof, it's still a sign of Ark's presence. Seeking to assert her ego, Margreta declares she will accept Arc only if rain falls immediately. A Terradrone nudges Jiha, pointing toward the miniature world. Hearing Selena's challenge, Jiha scans the area and spots a sprinkler quickly showering water on them. She can't believe her eyes as a heavy downpour nearly drowns her and her knights. Moments later, she wakes up in Selena's chamber, struggling to recall what happened. Selena gently explains that she passed out after the rain, and now, as promised, she must join them, since Arc truly answered. Still doubtful, she questions if the rain was truly Arc's doing. Sensing her struggle, Selena takes her to the sanctuary and kneels in prayer, asking Arc to reveal himself. Margreta's eyes widen as a giant hand descends from the ceiling. Selena urges her to come closer, sensing Arc's will. The following day, Margreta reports to Bolander at the Gaymark garrison, explaining Estrom's transformation and the disappearance of Grom and Perojak. Although the tale seems unbelievable, the captain accepts it, trusting her implicitly. Bolander doubts Arc's existence when Margreta says she saw no other soldiers. She begins to recount what happened, but he cuts her off, reminding her that the garrison's survival matters more than any unseen deity. He orders her to keep quiet to prevent panic. Yet behind closed doors, Margreta silently prays for the divine's forgiveness, her faith now unshakable. Back in the modern world in the U.S. Management Bureau, the president of the Hunter Association approves a Korean proposed agreement that includes Jiha. He instructs his staff to notify Psyker Hunter Association and to investigate the peculiarities of Korean hunters, especially Yu Jiha. The next day, the president of the U.S. Hunter Association receives confirmation about all activities of Korean hunters, the auction house, the awakening system, and the Nico appraisal. Each revelation only strengthens his desire to acquire Yu Jiha for his own purposes. The secretary, sensing his intentions, warns that targeting Yu Jiha could provoke the Korea Hunter Association. The president, however, weighs the risks against the potential gains, reasoning that the benefits Yu Jiha would receive by coming to the United States outweigh the danger of him siding against South Korea. He explains that while systems like the auction house and awakening system are impressive, they pale in comparison to the value of unique items such as scrolls, elixirs, and potions, resources that only rare individuals like Yu Jiha can provide. He emphasizes that acquiring his allegiance is a top priority. Chaos returns to Korea as the World Eater senses new monsters lurking in the shadows across a land. To protect the living creatures it deems sacred, it filters out the undead. Determined to save as many lives as possible, it opens its massive jaws and swallows the land whole, relocating it to safety. Jiha sits in the forest with his pets reading a book, when a mysterious humming fills the air, catching his attention. Baeom nudges him, signaling for him to follow. He sets off with his pets towards the coastline bathed in the warm hues of sunset and spots the World Eater with its mouth wide open. Curious about the creature's actions, he receives a notification explaining that the World Eater is an ocean guardian overseeing all terrestrial life. At this moment, it is relocating an island to protect its inhabitants from a corrupted environment. Realizing the scale of the task, he finally understands why the great creature is called World Eater. It has the power and responsibility to shift whole environments when needed. Ashamed for having done nothing but fish and swim, he asks the guardian if it's all right. It spouts water in response, and Jiha interprets it as consent. Jiha feels momentarily weighed down by the responsibility of caring for an entire ecosystem left behind by the World Eater. As the great creature departs, he waves and promises to nurture the land well. The story shifts to Gmark Village, where Margreta is under scrutiny for her religious beliefs. Hours earlier, Bartok, commander of the Gmark Knights, had visited her during training. He had instructed her to visit his office later, resting a firm hand on her shoulder. A dark, devilish grin had spread across his face as he hinted at a discussion about the Ark. Now in Bartok's office, he confronts Margreta about her involvement with Ark. She tries to deflect, but he points to a pendant with Ark's emblem and warns her not to lie, asserting that he has observed her actions all along. She freezes, horror and disgust flooding her as she realizes Bartok has been watching her without respite. He asserts that no one else knows of her connection to Ark, pretending his silence is a kindness. She immediately realizes he intends to exploit her secrets and force her into obedience. Dismissing her, he makes it clear she will obey whenever summoned, leaving her unnerved. A few days later, Margreta walks home, weighed down by the pressure of Bartok's constant watch. She notices the lights on as she nears her house and hesitates, unsure if she left them that way. She steps inside cautiously. A chilling unease replaces her sense of safety. She barely crosses the threshold when Bartok screams her name, shaking her to the core. Bartok's presence looms, demanding to know why she's home so late, and she can barely mutter that it was due to training. He waves her diary in the air, claiming it as proof of his earlier suspicion that a Gmark Knight believes in Ark. With the scripture in hand, Bartok mocks her supposed fascination with Ark's legendary affairs with many women that birthed countless species. Margreta protests, flustered, but he gestures to a bookmark and reads aloud, deepening her humiliation. Bartok taunts her with the sensual passages, speaking of Ark's divine incarnation and Silverbird's love with a cruel relish, dwelling on the bird's beauty. His words echo through the room, pushing Margreta to snap. She lunges for the book, but Bartok's knights step in, blocking her and demanding respect. Bartok accuses her of betraying the Gmark Empire. He reminds her she once swore to further the Empire's dominion over the continent. That was the reason she became a knight. But now her loyalty lies with Ark. He looms over Margreta, threatening her to make her pay for the broken oath. He even ridicules her upbringing by Bolander. He claims the captain of the knights made a mistake in trusting her as vice-captain. Pushed to the edge by his threats, she snaps, demanding what he wants. He then delivers his chilling ultimatum that she is to submit to him every night, to endure punishment for her faith in Ark. The next day, she recounts the confrontation to her father, Bolander, who refuses to let her become Bartok's prey. She tries to protest, but he cuts her off. Though the diary Bartok found enrages him, his concern for her outweighs his anger, and he urges her to leave the village. Emotions cloud his thoughts as he reflects on raising her. He knew she might one day cause trouble, but never expected it so soon. He offers her a narrow path to freedom, declaring her an escapee. Bolander reassures her that Bartok still needs him, so he will not harm him. When Margreta asks what would happen if she simply accepts the situation, he questions if she truly wants to accept him as her husband. He warns that marrying the fat, corrupt man would reduce her to worse than a peasant, something he won't stand. He hands her a bag and a weapon, instructing her to prepare. His guards have orders to look the other way when she leaps over the wall. He urges her to rely on her skills to evade the Solar Knight, and asks her to leave at once, instructing her to find the place where she witnessed Ark's miracle. She silently vows to return one day and confront Bartok, ending his tyranny. That night she dresses alluringly for the visit Bartok demanded, but her mind is fixed solely on escape. As she steps outside, two of his knights wait, their gaze filthy and intrusive. Using a restroom excuse, she puts her escape into motion, while the guards trade crude bets on her submission to Bartok. 20 minutes pass without her return. Both knights grow uneasy, and one heads to check, but it's too late. Margreta has already broken through the wall. The alarm bells are rung immediately. One knight spots her fleeing south on horseback and alerting others. Bartok commands every knight to chase her, promising a reward to whoever captures her and forces her to kneel before him. He charges after her himself. Margreta races across the field, glancing back at the army of knights closing in. She weighs her options: flee into the monster-ridden forest, or risk the open plains where her horse cannot outrun them. She scans desperately for another escape. Just as Bartok's hand nearly grazes her, a blinding bolt of lightning crashes down, splitting the earth between her and the pursuing army. The shockwave hurls the knights back, giving her the precious head start she needs. Unbeknownst to Bartok and his knights, the lightning strike had been Jiha's doing, delivered by Pani. Earlier in the garden, the beetles from the World Tree Library had arrived in a frenzy, scribbling notes in their tiny journals. They handed Jiha notes detailing Margreta's blackmail, escape, and the knight's pursuit. Horrified, Jiha began searching for her, first near Estrom and Gmark, but she was nowhere in sight. Then he spotted her racing across a field with the Solar Knights at her back. Without hesitation, he turned to Pani for help in rescuing her. Bartok, stunned and fearful, can only stammer, seeing the majestic being glowing in golden light. As he tries to make sense of what this creature is, his men shout that the lightning's destruction has made it impossible to chase her. Margreta, recognizing the miraculous intervention, approaches the horse, offering her immense gratitude. She climbs onto its back, clutching its mane, and they surge forward in a blaze of light, crumbling Bartok efforts into pieces. Riding atop the radiant steed, Margreta is awestruck by the speed and how the world looks so small as Estrom village comes into view. As they descend to the ground in Estrom village, she wonders if all this is a blessing of Ark. Margreta is immediately recognized by the townspeople who alert the prince. She collapses on the ground and Edenskull rushes towards her. Experiencing the miracles of Ark, Margreta Rustle finally swears allegiance, and thus comes under protection of Jiha. He turns to Pony, who returns after safely rescuing her. With this unexpected crisis resolved, Jiha decides to shift his focus to his next task. He arrives at the Hunter Academy, curious about the system it employs. The Hunter Academy is a government program designed to train young hunters, cultivating their talents from low to high rank. Jiha watches two students sparring from outside, and as he surveys the facility, he thinks the place is far too small to prepare them for real-world situations. He thinks though theoretical and fundamental education seems fine, still students' experience is limited to controlled environments. He reflects, the place lacks real combat training, wondering if it is because students don't face real monsters. He thinks without exposure to actual threats, the Academy's graduates may struggle when confronted with real danger. Determined to find a solution, he decides to consult the system book for ways to bridge the gap. Gyunbaek, who had personally invited him to visit the Academy, and also volunteers here in his free time, arrives to greet him and asks for his impressions. Jiha praises the facilities and thanks him for the invitation, prompting Gyunbaek to offer a guided tour of the Academy. After Jiha left for the Hunter Academy, all his animal companions gather in the garden and discuss how overwhelmed their master has been with work lately. When he is not around, their activities are simple. They eat grass, play in the lake, and afterwards curl up for a nap. While the nature gods sleep, the Pterodrones get to work. They clean the lake, tend to the trees, gather resources, and take care of the forest. Though some of them descend into their underground kingdom, where they craft weapons and artifacts for the hunters, they also maintain the dungeons, placing wooden signals for different categories of dungeons and packed dungeon chests. After the productive day, the Pterodrones gather to enjoy a well-earned treat, honey from a distant place, brought back by Jiha. With the Pterodrones content, Jiha turns his attention to the system book to find a way to train the Hunter Academy students for real combat. As he scans the pages, he finds unexpected topics like how to plant seeds or train lions. Then he spots something truly intriguing: methods to form a miniature world. Jiha feels surprised to discover he can create a miniature world. Reading further, he learns these concepts seem entirely different from the world he knows. He marvels that if the world he sees is just a fragment of a dungeon, then what he is reading is like creating a world and breathing life into it where only souls can enter. He contemplates preparing a body for the souls to enter the miniature world, allowing them to return after gaining new experiences. He thinks about using this for creating a controlled environment for Academy students to train in real combat scenarios. Unsure if it will work, he decides to try. He shapes small clay figures, meticulously adjusting each feature. Curiously, he and his pets peer down at the three dolls, one crafted to be a monster. His pets stare in silent judgment, disappointed by his horrendous lack of skill. The book explains that if a soul enters a body and Jiha grants it essence, a miniature world will form. He decides to test it on the Pterodrones, bribing them with honey to enter the clay dolls. At the thought of leaving their bodies, they panic, shaking like leaves, but he reassures them that it is harmless. Following his instructions, they hop through the portal. Once inside, their souls slip into the clay bodies, and they stare at their new ridiculous limbs. They feel even more unsettled by the fact they have become clay dolls. Outside, the remaining Pterodrones collapse in grief, convinced their friends are gone for good. The Pterodrones come to life inside the clay dolls. Jiha tests whether skills and traits can be gained in the miniature world, setting a condition that whoever defeats the monsters while in doll form will receive double the honey. However, he notices that even if his helpers cannot use their original skills as dolls, it's still good for practice. He thinks the Academy students could still benefit from this, but opening this miniature world in the Academy would be costly. Once their trial finishes, the beetles return back to their bodies and gather around Jiha, who praises everyone and checks for injuries. Then he learns that the miniature world will restore the damages automatically after the completion of quest. Afterwards, he acquires the skill of world creation, and one of the Pterodrones gains a new skill, Resolute Strike. Inspecting the Pterodrone, he notices that one of its claws has transformed into a sharp, sword-like shape. He feels satisfied that new hunters can now train for dungeons realistically, and ranked hunters can practice against monsters without risking their lives. A notification then informs